Welcome to Billionaire Romance Audiobooks. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. It helps more than you know and is the best way to stay up to date on our latest releases. When you subscribe, you'll also get notified when we release new videos. We also love hearing from our listeners. If you have any suggestions for future audiobooks, please feel free to leave a comment below. Or if you want to say hi, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening, and we hope you have a great day. Subscribe to this channel today and join the Billionaire Romance Audiobooks family.
While You Were Gone, A Second Chance Romance by Michelle Love. Book 6 in the Their Secret Desire series. Narrated by Google Play Narrated Voice. Audio copyright 2023 BFA Publishing. Note: we edited this romance audiobook to comply with the YouTube content guidelines. If you want to get the unedited version, you can grab a copy from Google Play Books, black, medium, small, square. Blurb.
I never thought I would feel happy again. Not for one moment. Not after he took my daughter. The man I married wasn't who I thought he was. And he showed me that in the worst possible way. I was left with nothing, and for 5 long years that was the way I wanted it. But now, I want my life back, but not here, not in Manhattan. I need to be far away from this place. I'm starting again in Seattle. A new state, a new home, a new career. I just didn't expect to find new love.
Chapter 1.
Maya rolled over onto her stomach and pretended she didn't see her 5-year-old daughter creeping into her parents' bedroom. Luca, her long dark hair, so like her mother's, messy and tangled, clouded around her sweet chubby face as she tried not to giggle. Maya waited until Luca climbed up onto the end of the bed and was creeping towards the pillows before she reared up, roaring, making her daughter scream and laugh as Maya tickled her. Maya finally relented and scooped Luca up into her arms, blowing raspberries on her cheeks, then nuzzling her nose against her daughter's. "Good morning, Nugget." Luca giggled, wriggling so she could lock her arms around Maya's neck. "How many sleeps now, Mama?" Maya grinned. 7, sweetie. It was a week before Christmas, and Luca had been nagging at her parents to get a tree and decorate it. "Almost everyone else has already had theirs up for weeks, Mama." "I know, sweetie, but you know what Daddy's like. He says it spoils it if we celebrate too soon." But today, a week before Christmas, she and Luca had the whole day planned out. The tree was being delivered to their Upper East Side apartment later that morning, and they had already shopped for way too many ornaments and fairy lights. Luca was almost beside herself with excitement. Maya got herself and Luca showered and dressed for the day before heading to their kitchen. Their cook, Joelle, smiled at them. "Today's the day, huh?" While Luca ate her breakfast, Maya checked her messages. Zachary, a proven workaholic, was already at work, but he'd found the time to send her a message despite being the CEO of a multinational tech company. "Hi, darling, have a wonderful day with Nugget today. I love you. Z." Maya smiled to herself. Many people had told her they thought maybe Zach was too aloof for her fun-loving nature, or he seemed distant when they were at parties, but Maya knew that her husband of 6 years was merely shy. When they were alone, they sincerely enjoyed each other's company, and Maya thought he reined in some of her wilder tendencies. Maya Gahana met Zachary Kanta when the elusive tech billionaire arrived at her prestigious Manhattan publishing house to discuss his biography. Maya, then a sub-editor of nonfiction, had attended that meeting, shadowing her boss and mentor, Eliza Pentland. She hadn't expected to contribute much, but the moment Zach Kanta had stepped into the room, his eyes had settled on Maya and never left. Maya had been uncomfortable with his scrutiny, especially when her boss Eliza seemed pissed at her. She deliberately didn't speak to Kanta, but an hour after he left her boardroom, a vast bouquet of flowers arrived for her with a note. "Dinner? I'm not the kind of man who takes no for an answer." Maya had raised an eyebrow at that. "Well, There's always a first time for everything, Mr. Conta. She had been all set to call him and refuse his invitation, but Eliza had spotted the bouquet and read the note before Maya could stop her. Maya told her boss she was refusing the date, and to her surprise, Eliza shook her head. No, keep it. Maya, we need this book deal with him. Maya had been shocked, and Eliza held up her hands. I don't mean sleep with him. Of course not, but a working dinner. He was obviously taken with you, and as a client, he could be valuable to this company. There was an implied threat in her words. Come through for me or your job could be at risk, and so, reluctantly, Maya agreed to have dinner with Conta. Maya smiled to herself now. She hadn't stood a chance. Zachary Conta was handsome, charming, and attentive. That first dinner turned into a second and a third, and within 3 months they were married. Now, 7 years on, Maya still felt the whiplash from Zach's full-on love bombing. Maya had grown up in a children's home on Long Island and had been through a number of foster homes before finally striking out on her own. By working 3 jobs and getting bogged down with student loans, she'd put herself through college, even gaining a scholarship to Columbia, and by hustling and interning, had landed herself a junior editorship at Pentland and Copps Publishing House. Eliza had been a thorough but fair mentor, but she and Maya were never close. Her aloof exterior did warm, though, after Maya's marriage. Eliza recognized the potential of being in Zachary Conta's social circle. Always good-natured and generous, Maya accepted her new position in society with ease and grace, and didn't care that Eliza was using her to improve her own situation. It didn't have any effect on the happiness Maya felt with Zach. He was 20 years her senior, 48 to her 28, and they celebrated their 7th wedding anniversary a month ago. Their greatest joy in life, though, was undoubtedly Luca. Their precocious, loving daughter had brought them closer together. The only dark cloud on their seemingly perfect lives was Zach's health. A year ago, he'd been diagnosed with a mild depression, and sometimes the black moods took him to a place that scared his wife. He would become withdrawn, irritable, and a little possessive of Maya. She weathered his moods with love and patience, and eventually he would emerge, apologetic and remorseful. Today, she and Luca would go shopping for gifts for him. When they were first married, she was at a loss to know what to buy the billionaire husband who could afford anything, obviously, but soon she learned all he wanted was her company and that of Luca's. Zach liked her, loved to read, and so when Luca was bundled up against the December cold, they went to their favorite bookstore to find something for his gift. Jerry, the bookstore owner, greeted them with a smile. Maya, you're in luck. I've just come back from antiquing in Connecticut, and you'll never guess what I found. He rummaged around the cash register and pulled out a book, handing it to her. Maya smoothed the leather cover. Solaris by Stanislaw Lem, one of Zach's favorite authors. She smiled up at Jerry. Really? First edition, too. I thought of you immediately. This is perfect, Jerry. Thank you. Nugget, why don't you try to find something you would like as a treat while I talk to Jerry? Luca smiled and wandered over to the children's section. Jerry's bookstore was a small, independent place with oiled wood shelving and books that weren't just from the New York Times bestseller list. Maya and Luca could spend hours in the store, and Jerry was so laid back he never minded. With the store so small, he and Maya could chat while keeping an eye on Luca. Maya paid for the Lem book and Luca's treat, and they waved goodbye to Jerry, wishing him a happy holiday. They held hands, swinging them gently as they walked to the different stores. After an hour of strolling, Maya took Luca to a coffee shop and bought her some hot chocolate. Her phone rang as she was served with her tea, and Maya smiled gratefully at the waitress. Hello? Hello, darling, it's me. Maya smothered a grin. Who else? Hey, honey. I just wanted to remind you about the party tonight. I remembered, sweetheart. Nugget and I are going to go find me some shoes soon. Zach chuckled. Any excuse. Maya frowned a little. What was that supposed to mean? She was hardly a spendthrift. Well, you know I always want to look my best for you. I meant nothing by that, sweetie. Sorry, I was distracted for a moment. And you could turn up in a garbage bag and still be the most beautiful woman in the room. Ha! Maya flushed at the compliment, her anger forgotten. Have you been drinking? This early, Mr. Kanta? Zach laughed. It's true regardless. Anyway, I was just checking in. That's my excuse to talk to you. Is Nugget enjoying shopping? Maya handed the phone to her daughter. Dada wants to say hello. She listened, smiling, to the conversation Luca had with her father. She was still smiling when Luca handed the phone back. See, how we're going to get her to sleep for the next week, I don't know. Do people still disapprove of drugging your kids? She crossed her eyes at Luca to show she was kidding, making her daughter giggle. Zach laughed. I think it might be frowned upon. Look, baby, I have to go. I'll see you later, okay? I love you. Love you too. They shopped for another hour or so, then went home. Maya had taken some time off from the office for the holidays, having been a workaholic throughout her pregnancy and Luca's formative years. She regretted that now, but at the time she had wanted to prove to the world and to herself that she was a modern woman, that she could do it. Mostly, she had to admit, she had wanted to prove to those people in Zach's social circle that she wasn't a gold digger, that she had her own agency, that Zach wasn't her sugar daddy. Ah, she hated that saying. In the last store, she sought out the assistant's help as she tried on shoes for the party. Maya loathed wearing heels, but new flats were a no-no, so she enlisted help to find some heels that were semi-comfortable at least. Luca played with the empty shoe boxes and helped the assistant sort them back into the right ones before getting bored and wandering off to look at the sparkly kids' shoes. Maya, who hated shopping for shoes, was losing the will to live, and the assistant grinned at her. You hate this? Yup. I would too. Well, look, what color is your outfit? Maya smiled. Midnight blue. They went through a few options while Maya had one eye on Luca. The assistant brought out a final option, and Maya's eyebrows shot up. Wow, really? The assistant held out a pair of what Maya could only describe as Dorothy's ruby slippers. She grinned at Maya. It's Christmas. Plus, who doesn't need some glitter in their lives? The shoes were gorgeous, but not quite fitting for the Upper East Side, but what the hell, Maya thought with a chuckle. I'll take them. She glanced over at the children's section, and her heart failed. Her daughter was nowhere to be seen. Luca was gone.
Chapter 2.
Luca. She darted over and looked around, panic building. Luca, honey? Her voice was rising. Sweetheart, don't hide now. The assistant came over, a concerned look on her face. Is everything okay? Terrified now, Maya looked at her, her eyes wild. My daughter. Mama. Maya whirled around to see Luca jump out from behind a pillar, Zach grinning behind her. Maya's heart began to slow, but now she was annoyed. Don't ever do that, she said, glaring more at her husband than her daughter. She saw Luca's face drop and hurriedly bent down to her height. Sweetheart, it's just I was worried. Daddy said it would be fun. Luca looked between her mother and father uncertainly. Don't worry, sweetie, Mama's just being silly. It was a prank, Maya, that's all. Maya glared at Zach, her anger simmering. What the hell was wrong with him? Did he think he was funny? And what the hell was he doing here? Biting her tongue, she returned to the cashier and paid for her shoes, and the family left to go home. Luca was subdued now, and Maya knew she had picked up on the tension between her parents. To distract her daughter, Maya suggested they go to Rockefeller Center and see the tree there, and that seemed to work. Maya picked up her daughter and hugged her tightly, trying to hide how annoyed she was with Zach. She didn't speak to him directly the entire time. At home, Luca went to play in her room, and Maya and Zach went to change for the party that evening. After a few moments of tense silence, Zach sighed. Maya, come on. It was just a dumb prank. Making me think I'd lost my daughter, Zach? That's not a prank, it's just cruel. Why on earth? Maya's voice was rising. Was she being too hard on him? Had it really just been a thoughtless joke? Don't ever do it again. Believe me, I won't. Zach muttered, stalking into the bathroom. Great, Maya thought, still annoyed. Now we'll have an entire evening of snarking and tension. She was still pissed. Did Zach think an apology was beneath him? She changed into her dress and did her makeup while Zach was in the shower, then went to find Luca. The little girl was laying in her book nook, reading one of her favorite stories. Not caring about her dress, Maya crawled inside with her and kissed her. You okay, Nugget? Luca nodded, but Maya could see the wariness in her eyes. Look, darling, it's okay. Daddy just didn't know I'd be so upset, but you know, it's only because the thought of losing you, of never seeing you again, would break my heart, you know? I love you so much, Nugget, more than anything in this world. Don't be sad. Sometimes people do things that they think might be funny, but really they're not. Daddy made a mistake is all. It's okay. Mama, are you and Daddy going to split up? No. Gosh, Luca, no. Sometimes people have arguments but they don't last. I love Daddy and he loves both of us. No biggie, okay? No biggie. No biggie. Maya kissed Luca's cute button nose. Sarah will be here soon, and she called me earlier and told me she's bringing some crafts for you two to do together. So, you can stay up a little later than normal, okay? For a treat. Luca's eyes lit up. Okay. When Maya crawled back out of the book nook, her heart felt eased. Zach was waiting for her, smiling. He helped her to her feet and drew her close. I'm sorry, Maya. I was an idiot. He kissed her gently, and she felt the last of her anger slip away. You're forgiven. His kiss grew deeper. I love you, Mrs. Conta. She chuckled. Right back at you, Mr. Conta. They went back to their bedroom to finish dressing, and to Maya's surprise, Zach loved her sparkly Dorothy shoes. That'll show those stuck-up skanks. You look beautiful, darling. And for once, she felt beautiful. Maya checked her reflection one last time. Her caramel skin, inherited from her Indian mother and Creole father, glowed with the light makeup she had put on, and her long dark hair fell in soft waves down her back. The midnight blue dress clung to her full chest, flat stomach, and curvy hips. She wasn't the tallest woman, only 5'4", but the heels gave her an extra inch or so next to Zach's 6 feet. He was gloriously elegant in a dark blue suit, and he took her hand as they said goodbye to Luca and Sarah the sitter, and went down to the waiting limousine. Maya unconsciously straightened her spine as they walked into the party. Even though she knew these people well, she still felt like an outsider. She hadn't been born into this world, she had married into it, and she suspected many of Zach's contemporaries looked down at her. There was one woman in particular who repeatedly made it clear that Maya didn't belong, and never had. Tracy Goldingham, a stick-thin blonde socialite, beautiful in a pinched, snooty way, had always harbored a crush on Zach, and when he'd married the decidedly non-snooty Maya, Tracy hadn't even attempted to hide her disdain. Maya wasn't scared of her, she just hated being in the same room as the vicious blonde. The couple throwing the party, however, were two people she did like and respect. Henry Klein was Zach's college roommate and business partner, and his wife, Sakata, was a charity maven who actually did more than just throw parties for show. Sakata and Maya had hit it off immediately. As Sakata put it, they were the Asian contingent. Maya had laughed at her description and nodded. We represent all right. Sakata also had no time for the nasty members of their circle, those men and women who looked down on Maya when she married Zach. Girl, you have 2 college degrees, and you're a major force at your publishing company. And you did it on your own. Those jerks have never had to try. Maya spotted Tracy making a beeline for her and Zach, and excused herself. The mood she was in, she didn't want anything to do with the vile skank. Coming to her rescue, Sakata bore Maya off as soon as they joined the party. Come with me, I know where Henry's hidden the good booze. She and Maya retreated to the kitchen and found a bottle of scotch. Sakata waved it triumphantly. Henry will kill me, but who cares? I have to put up with his crappy taste in wine. Sakata and Henry enjoyed a rambunctious relationship, forever play fighting and fooling around. Henry was so easygoing and Sakata so mischievous that they seemed incongruous in this world, but Maya wished her own husband was a little more like Henry, fun-loving and chilled out. But then again, she told Sakata about Zach's prank. Am I overreacting? Sakata pulled a face. No way. What a jerk move. Maya felt a little better. Right? I wanted to kill him. I would have certainly made sure I need him somewhere painful. Maya snorted with laughter. Damn, never thought of that. Sakata speared an olive from a platter waiting to be taken into the party, and popped it in her mouth. Not like Zachary to play pranks. I know. Maybe that's why it shocked me. Maya took a slug of scotch and grimaced. Ah. Sakata snorted. Yup. Best to sip that one. How did Zach know you were in that store? He said he was just passing and saw us. Random. Maya nodded. She wasn't sure if she believed Zach's story either, but she had no reason to believe otherwise. He was hardly the type of person to keep tabs on her, but a small chill went up her spine anyway. Don't be stupid, this is Zach we're talking about, the man you love, the father of your child. You know him better than you know yourself. She decided to change the subject. So, who's coming tonight? Apart from the Witch Queen of Angmar. I've already seen her. The usual, both good and bad. Sakata grinned. Oh, and a few new people. A couple we met when we were in Jakarta for the conference, Julia and Gordon Van Dusen. She's lovely but he's, well, sweet but grabby, so keep your eyes open and duck away when you can. And someone Henry's trying to schmooze, Adam Harcourt. Name rings a bell. You've probably heard of his father, Alan Harcourt, the property magnate. Adam works for him. Sakata lowered her voice. He's gorgeous, absolutely to die for, but very closed off and reserved. He brought a date, but seems to be content to ignore her and drink on his own. I don't think Henry's going to get very far with him. Maya already felt a kinship with the newcomer. I wish I had the guts to go hide out. No offense, but you know how much I hate parties. No offense taken. For my work, it's a necessary evil. Sakata studied her. Talking of work. I hear Eliza might be moving on. Maya flushed. No one was supposed to know about her impending promotion to editor-in-chief, not even Zach knew. But Sakata had spies in many camps. Nothing is set in stone yet, so I'm not getting excited about it. I don't want to jinx it. Sakata squeezed her arm. It's very well deserved, honey, but my lips are sealed, I promise. She sighed. Well, let's go and rejoin the party. I'll point out the hunk if he comes out of hiding. Maya was still giggling when they went back to find their husbands. Zach snaked an arm around Maya's waist. You look happy. Always with you, she said and kissed his cheek. He leaned his forehead against hers. Does this mean I'm forgiven? Maya smiled. You're forgiven, and when we get home tonight, I'll show you just how forgiven you are. His eyebrows shot up and desire glowed in his eyes. I'll make you keep that promise, Maya Kanta. To Maya's relief, the party was a laid-back affair, and the more aloof people kept to themselves. Sakata introduced Maya to Julia and Gordon, and Maya was delighted to see a mischievous glint in Julia's eyes. Gordon was a little boorish but friendly nonetheless, and Maya warmed to the new couple, inviting them for drinks after the holidays. I would love that, Julia confided, leaning in conspiratorially. Some of these women look terrifying. Maya grinned at her new friend, and Julia laughed. Yup. Maya chatted easily with Julia while Zach and Gordon talked business, and before they knew it, people were starting to leave. Is it that late already? Maya looked around for Zach, who had excused himself while she was occupied. Excuse me, Julia. Good to meet you. Call me after Christmas, promise? Maya kissed her cheek. I promise. She liked the other woman immensely. They chatted for a while, then Henry came to claim his wife to introduce her to some other people. Maya turned and almost groaned out loud. Tracy was right next to her. Hello, Maya. She looked her up and down, smirking when she saw her red glittery shoes. Are we going for Las Vegas hooker style? I had no idea this party was fancy dress. Sure you did, or you wouldn't have come as a raging skank. Maya shot back. You might want to mix up your costumes. That one's getting pretty old. She downed the last of her champagne, gave Tracy her most insincere smile and walked away. Yes. Got her. It was petty, but damn, it was satisfying. She wandered through the remaining people, trying to find her husband. When she couldn't find him, she went out to the balcony for some air. It was bitterly cold, and she shivered, but the fresh, sharp air cleared her head. Are you looking for someone? Maya whirled around at the sound of his voice. Behind her, a man stood up from one of the balcony chairs. He was tall, easily 6'5" and broad-shouldered. His dark brown hair was all loose curls, his eyes a vivid green. 3 days of dark scruff defined his utterly perfect face. Maya was aware she was staring, but she couldn't help herself. He was the most beautiful man she had ever seen. He half smiled at her scrutiny. Believe me, this, he pointed at his face, is a curse, not a blessing. His eyes were steady on hers, and he reached out and touched her cheek. An exquisite woman like you must be taken. Maya swallowed hard and nodded. I'm looking for my husband. The man smiled. Husband? Just my luck. Maya. She heard Zach's voice behind her and rearranged her expression into a smile. Hey, darling, I was looking for you. This is, she turned, but the beautiful man had disappeared. A wonderful view. She finished awkwardly, nodding to the view over Central Park. Nothing compared to what I'm looking at. Let's go home, darling.
Chapter 3.
Zach was so loving and attentive on the way home that Maya forgot about the beautiful man, and by the time they had said goodbye to the sitter and checked on a sleeping Luca, she was tired. But Zach was already hard for her, and he peeled her dress from the shoulders. Keep the shoes on, he murmured, his lips against her throat. Maya chuckled, then gasped as he ripped her undies from her and deftly unhooked her corset. Geez, you're so gorgeous, my love. She woke in the middle of the night to find the bed empty beside her. She sighed. This had happened a few times over the last few months. Zach was finding it difficult to sleep. She slipped from the bed and padded silently through the apartment to find him. He was sitting in his study, his headphones on, staring out of the window. Maya slipped her arms around his shoulders and hugged him. He lifted his headphones off, setting them on the desk, taking her hand and drawing her onto his lap. She stroked his face, noting the dark circles under his eyes. What is it, my love? Zach shook his head, holding her close, and she stroked his hair. Is it me? Am I upsetting you in some way? No, darling. You and Luca are the best things in my world. I'm just feeling. He gave a choked laugh. I can't even put it into words. Unsettled. Frustrated. With what? He shrugged. Life. I don't think depression has a reason, Maya, it just comes. My mother used to suffer from it, too. Maya held him close. You've never told me much about your parents. I suppose I haven't. Maya waited, but he didn't go on. She pressed her lips to his. Come back to bed, darling. I can help relax you. Zach let her lead him back to bed afterward, and she wrapped herself around him, cradling his head against her chest. But when she slept, she dreamed of vivid green eyes and a sad smile.
Chapter 4. 5 years later. Seattle.
Adam Harcourt nodded as the judge granted his divorce. He didn't look at Gail as she stood across the room from him. He already knew what her expression would be. Pain, betrayal, hatred. And he deserved it all. Gail was a good woman, and he'd been selfish enough to marry her just to make his father happy. It hadn't worked. Now his father was gone, and Gail loathed the very sight of him. I'm sorry, he wanted to tell her. I'm sorry I'm such a weak man. He risked a look at her. Her elegant patrician features were blank as she stared back at him, but her eyes told him the story of her sadness and pain. God, I'm sorry. He stepped towards her as the judge dismissed the court, but Gail turned her head and stalked out, ignoring him. He knew she would never talk to him again, and he didn't blame her. Adam thanked his lawyer and left quickly, slipping into his Mercedes and driving out of the city. He kept driving in no particular direction until he reached the coastline, then, ignoring the fact he was wearing a $17,000 handmade suit, he walked along the beach for miles. Even when it started to rain, he didn't turn back, grateful that the bad weather meant he was alone. And he was alone. In the week since his father had died, Adam had been in denial, but now he knew it was the case. His mother had died when he was a kid, and his older brother disappeared into the Australian interior years before and didn't keep in touch. For years it had been Adam and his father, locked in some kind of twisted power play between father and son, always trying to one-up each other. And Adam was tired of it. His father's death had released something inside of him, a freedom, a kind of relief. The guilt that brought was almost unbearable. What a messed up life. Adam slowed down, breathing hard. He might be wealthy beyond reason, handsome as Adonis, but that was nothing to Adam. He wanted. What did he want? Marriage clearly wasn't for him. He spent his 20s and 30s making his way around the world's most beautiful women, but that hadn't made him happy. He'd been seeking someone who didn't exist. A soulmate. Only once had he felt the promise of something more, a brief moment at a party 5 years ago. A moment on a cold December night at an acquaintance's party. Her eyes, those large deep brown eyes wreathed with dark lashes. Her sweet smile. God, it had been less than a minute, but she'd haunted his dreams ever since. Stupidly. She was married. After the party, Adam had flown back to Seattle and tried to forget her, but now and again her face would fill his dreams. Adam rubbed his face now. Geez, he was so messed up. Something had to change in his life. Something had to give him purpose. He drove back to his apartment in the city. In the shower, he held his face up to the cool spray, hoping to clear his head. He was meeting an old friend this evening, Dante Harper, who'd just moved back to the city with his wife Emery. The couple had spent a few years in Dante's mother's home country of Italy, but were now back in Seattle. Adam and Dante had been close friends as children, and now Adam felt a wave of hope. Dante had always been a steadying force in his life. Maybe he could confide in his friend and seek guidance. Something had to change, that much Adam knew. He just didn't know what to do to change it. Adam. Dante hugged his old friend tightly, and Adam felt his heart lift. Dante introduced him to the lovely woman at his side. Adam, this is my Emery. Adam kissed her cheek. So, it's you who's made this old man so happy. Good to meet you at last. Emery Harper smiled at him. And you, Adam. Dante talks about you all the time. She was beautiful, and Adam felt a pang. Her caramel skin, her large dark eyes, she reminded him of the girl on the balcony. Over dinner, he learned that the couple had a daughter. She's 8 now and a handful, Emery laughed, showing him a picture of a young girl with merry dancing eyes and a bright smile, Nella. She keeps asking us for a brother or sister. Will you give her one? Nella was adopted, Emery said matter-of-factly. I couldn't have children naturally. But we're thinking about adopting again. She grinned at Dante. Just depends on whether my old man has the energy. Dante laughed. Enough with the old man. He looked at Adam. And what about you? Adam shrugged and told them about the divorce. It was for the best. So recent, though. Emery frowned at him. Are you okay? No. No, I'm not okay. Not by a long shot. I'm fine. Start of a new era. He looked at Dante. Maybe you can suggest a new project for us to do together? I need a new challenge. Dante and Emery exchanged a glance, and Dante nodded. I'm sure we can come up with something. Adam, when we're settled in the new house, you'll have to come and stay with us for a weekend. If we ever find somewhere. We're looking at places out on Bainbridge Island. I can help with that, he told them. I have contacts in the area. After he'd said goodbye to his friends, he intended to drive home, but instead drove into the city to one of his favorite clubs, a club that asked their clients to wear masquerade eye masks for the ultimate anonymity. He sat at the bar for a while before being welcomed into the rooms at the back of the club. It was another bar, but this time, the clientele wasn't there for cocktails. As Adam fixed the masquerade mask over his eyes, he passed his gaze over the women there. He had already slept with a few of them, and some of them, he knew, wouldn't mind revisiting their trysts, but he never slept with the same woman twice. He'd made that known right at the beginning. His eyes were drawn to a dark-haired woman seated at the bar. She was new. Her curves were poured into a skin-tight red dress which clung to her small waist and rounded hips. Her face was almost completely obscured by her white mask, but he could see her full, rose-pink mouth as she sipped her drink. He went over, ordered a mineral water, and sat down next to her. She didn't look at him, and when she picked her glass up, he could see her hands trembling. Ah. So she was really new and inexperienced at this. Hello. She turned unnaturally violet eyes to him, contacts, he guessed. She really didn't want anyone to see the real her, and that intrigued him. Hello. A soft voice, a slight quaver. He smiled, his eyes soft. You're new here? She nodded. I am. She gave a sweet little chuckle. I don't really know what I'm doing here. It was a whim. I'm sorry, I should probably be all cool and confident, but the truth is, I have no idea what I'm doing. She shook her head, smiling. I think I'm out of my depth here. I was just trying something different, you know? Something out of my comfort zone. Adam touched a finger to her cheek, was gratified when she didn't pull away. There was something compelling about this woman, about her honesty. Usually, the people at the club put on an act, which was kind of the point of the masks, but this woman. If you're not comfortable, lovely lady, I should go. Adam felt bereft, but he nodded. I would hate it if you were caught up in something you weren't ready for. What was he saying? When had he turned into a bleeding heart? But something about her made him feel protective. She was gorgeous, sensual, and definitely in the wrong place. May I walk you out? She hesitated, then nodded, and he offered her his arm. I have to say, I'm surprised to find such a gentleman here. Thank you. You're welcome. Ask her for her number. Ask her to come home with you. Don't let her go. Can I drive you home? Oh, wrong thing to say. He saw wariness in her eyes, and he held up his hands. Forget I said that, I'm sorry. I meant it well, not as the awkward come on it sounded like. She gave a small laugh of relief. It's okay, I'll take a cab. Adam waited outside the club with her until they hailed a cab, then opened the door for her. It was good to meet you. And you. Thank you rescuing me from that place. She hesitated, then quickly kissed him, brief, soft on the mouth. For what it's worth, you made this evening a good one. Goodbye. Bye. He watched as the cab drove away and shook his head. What a freaking weird night. When the cab had disappeared into the night, Adam took off his mask, showing it into his pocket. He'd lost the enthusiasm for a casual one-night stand tonight. He went to his car, thankful he hadn't had anything alcoholic to drink. He wanted to drive in the cool air of the night to clear his head. His lips still tingled from the soft kiss, her soft kiss. Ah, damn it. What was wrong with him? Damn. Maybe it was time to grow up and try to find someone who meant something more than a quick hookup, someone he could really care about. Maybe it was time.
Chapter 5.
Maya thanked the cab driver and let herself into her hotel room. She stripped out of the red dress and with relief removed the violet contacts from her eyes. She was still trembling, and when she'd showered and changed into sweats, she crawled onto the bed and let out a sigh. What the hell was I thinking? Earlier, feeling brave and frustrated, going to the club had seemed like a good idea. She had needed to feel the touch of another human, had needed it for a couple of years now, and tonight her frustration had peaked, and she'd done her research on the internet. Maybe if the guy in the club hadn't been so kind, she would have gone through with it. She smiled to herself then. Yeah, he'd been a sweetie, and thank God for it. Maya sat back against the headboard. At least she'd been saved from a train wreck. Her biggest train wreck, of course, was her life now. After 5 years of nothing but searching for Luca and Zach, not believing her daughter was gone, her friends had sat her down. Sakata, Julia, they'd both told her some harsh truths. They're gone, Sakata had said, holding Maya's hands. Luca is gone. Dead, Maya. Zach's note made that clear. Maya winced now recalling it, but she had known they were right. You need to make a new life now, my darling, Julia, who'd become a good friend, told her. Away from New York. She had known they were right about that, too. Her nemesis Tracy had been crowing to anyone who would listen about how Maya couldn't keep her husband happy, that she'd made him so desperate he killed himself and his daughter. There was more than one occasion when Maya had been held back from going full medieval on Tracy's smug ass. The final straw was the article in one of New York's high-end magazines. The article was clearly planted by Tracy and painted Maya as nothing more than a gold-digging skank. Maya's friend leapt to her defense and encouraged her to sue the writer and the magazine, but Maya was exhausted by all of it. So she'd chosen to move across the country. She'd never been to Seattle before, but as soon as she saw the waters of Elliott Bay and Puget Sound, the Olympic Mountains, and Mount Rainier so majestic against the skyline, she knew she had made the right decision. A new life. The New York police were still refusing to close the case and declare Zach and Luca dead. Zach, she would never forgive him. Ever. It was as simple as that. When, at his memorial, his friends had extolled on what a great man he was, she could hardly stop herself from screaming out that he was a murderer. That he had taken her daughter away, ended her young life for no other reason than to cause Maya pain. Jerk. So Maya, her anger, her hurt a burning thing, divorced Zach in absentia, and in her divorce filing asked for sole custody of Luca, the daughter who was lost. Zach's money was tied up, but she'd had enough saved of her own, and the apartment had been in her name for tax reasons, that she sold everything, readying for the move out to the West Coast. She'd given Henry full control of Zach's part in the company, not caring to run it herself, but wanting to save some of Luca's inheritance, just in case. Everything was just in case, but with every day that passed, Maya began to accept she would never see her daughter again. Now she had been in Seattle for a few days, and for the time being, she had holed up in a small but clean hotel. She had some vague idea about what she wanted to do, but she'd lost confidence in herself. After the disappearance, she had given up her position at the publishing company, spending every day searching for any clue to Luca's fate. She'd driven herself half mad. Now, as she began to accept that Luca was gone, and as she stood on the edge of a new life, there was a small glimmer of optimism in her soul. There were good people in this world. The stranger at the club had proved that. 2 days later, she was standing in an empty storefront on Bainbridge Island. From the large picture windows, she could see across the bay to the city. The polished wooden floors and shelves smelled wonderful, and Maya knew she had found her place. She talked about the lease with the realtor and ended up signing a 5-year contract. What will you do with the place? The realtor, Jensen, was looking at her with interest, a cute young man with dark blonde hair and merry green eyes. A bookshop, she said, smiling at him. I know that must sound boring to you, but I love reading. Not at all, he assured her. I'm a nerd too. Oh, I mean, no offense. He seemed to realize she might take that as an insult, but Maya laughed. None taken, I am a nerd and proud of it. She looked around her new premises. Now business done. Let's talk about somewhere to live. Jensen came through for her again with a home. He found her a small house on a quiet street with a garden that led down to a tiny private beach. It had been up for rent for a while, the furniture covered in dust sheets, but as Maya walked through it, she could see herself here. The porch had an old swing, rife with woodworm, but as she sat down gingerly it swung gently. Jensen was watching her. Well? She smiled at him. Yes. You had a good day, Jensen. He laughed. Glad to hear it. Now, let's get the business out of the way. I know some movers if you need them. I don't. I didn't bring anything but my clothes and books with me. Maya stood up. I'm starting over, Jensen. But if you could point me in the way of a good furniture store, I'd be grateful. A week later, and she had moved in. She found she enjoyed living so sparsely, so when Jensen had hooked her up with a great furniture store, she bought a few pieces. A new bed, kitchen table, some comfortable armchairs, but she found herself each evening sitting outside on the rickety porch swing and watching the sunsets over the island. During the days she scrubbed, polished, and oiled the wooden floors and shelves of her new bookstore, and then enthusiastically filled the shelves. She sought out a sign maker, and 3 weeks after her arrival in Washington, Luca's Books opened to a curious crowd of buyers. Adam hugged Emery as she opened the door to him. Hey you! You look better. She studied him and nodded approvingly. Adam grinned at her. Even though they hadn't known each other for a long time, he'd grown very fond of his friend's wife. Emery Harper had been through the mill when it came to life. Injured in a school massacre, she'd been shot by a vengeful ex-husband and only survived due to Dante's help and care. A former school teacher, she now taught as a professor at UW. Nella, the Harper's daughter, greeted Adam shyly. I think she has a crush on you, Emery grinned to her daughter's protest. Dante clapped Adam's shoulder. Just in time. I've been cooking. Baby. You put steaks on a grill. Emery chuckled at his pout. Okay, that counts. In the garden of their rented home on Bainbridge Island, Adam saw they had indeed started a cookout. Some mutual friends had also made their way to the party, and Adam chatted easily with them. Emery was right. For the past few weeks, a weight had lifted from Adam's shoulders. No more was the fear of disappointing his father in his life, because the fear of disappointing himself had replaced it. But that was something he could do something about. He'd been talking to Dante, late into the night sometimes, and Dante had convinced him that change was already in his own hands. He'd confided about the girl at the club, and Dante had nodded. Sometimes people are brought into our lives for a reason. I know Em was, despite the horrific way we met. Em will tell you that everything happens for a reason, and she would know. He patted his friend's shoulder. This girl, whoever she was, you may never see her again. You probably won't see her again. But just maybe, she taught you that someone could get into that heart of yours. Adam had thought about his friend's words again and again between then and now, and in his everyday life, he began to see new possibilities, new connections he could make. He wasn't seeking the one relentlessly, just opening his mind to something more than just a fling. Certainly more than what he had given Gail during their marriage. Christ, he'd been a jerk even if he'd never raised his voice or his fist to her. Absence was another kind of abuse. He'd called her and left her a long rambling voicemail message when she didn't pick up, apologizing, but she hadn't called him back. Adam couldn't blame her. She wanted to move past the pain, and he could respect that. It wasn't for Gail to absolve his guilt. Hey buddy. Dante sat down next to him now, beer in hand. Now that I have a moment off from chefing duties, he grinned as Emery scoffed at him, I wanted to talk to you about something. Go for it. We've found some land here on the island, and we'd like you to build us a house. Adam sipped his beer. Oh, just that? He laughed. Wow, okay. You're the best architect I know, hell, any of us know, and you've spent far too long sitting in meetings and behind desks. Come on it, you know that's true. With all due respect, your father never gave you the freedom to create like I know you can. So carte blanche. Unlimited budget. Build my girls a palace. Adam grinned at his friend. I'm assuming you're speaking figuratively? You know what I mean. Emery has a ton of ideas, so I'm sure she'll tell you all of them and then some. Dante leaned in and said in a stage whisper, I hate to tell you this, but Em has a project book stuffed with ideas. There are turrets, man, turrets. I can hear you. Emery giggled and came to sit on his knee. So Adam, Dante's told you? He has, and I'm looking forward to it. Adam smiled at the couple, watching them as they held each other. They were so close, so in sync with each other, and it made Adam's heart ache. Would he ever find someone like that? As he drove home that night, he wondered if Dante and Emery were so close because they had been through hell together, actual life and death crap. He felt bad for feeling so depressed when they had been through much worse than he had ever been through. That he would admit to anyway. There were some parts of his life that he had closed off to himself and had denied all his life because they were just too painful to confront. On the ferry back to the mainland, he looked back over to the island. He liked the pace of life there, it was pretty chill. It was a bedroom community, feeding into the city's businesses, yes, but he liked the feel of the place. And it was beautiful, too. He was looking forward to building Dante and Emery's new home, and while he was out there, maybe he'd rent a place, see how island life suited him. It was something different. A different way to live his life. His business practically ran itself thanks to his uber-efficient team, and it wasn't as if he couldn't afford to take time off for a passion project. Thanks to his father's will, he was worth billions. Adam half laughed to himself. He had made his own money, albeit with the help of a good education and help from his father, but now, with unlimited resources. Just don't waste it, he told himself. Use it to build a new life, get some passion back. Yes, this new project would change things for him, and it was about time. With a definite lift in his spirits, he went home and straight to bed, dreaming of blueprints, bricks, and a new life.
Chapter 6.
No sooner than Maya had put a help-wanted notice in the bookshop window than a young Asian-American girl came in, smiling shyly. Lark's son was a college student looking to spend what remained of the summer vacation working and saving for her sophomore year at UW. What began as a formal interview soon turned into talking about their favorite books, and Maya knew she had found the right person. Lark wanted to start as soon as possible, and so Maya and she agreed on her hours and schedule. She thanked Maya for the opportunity, but as she was leaving, Maya called her back. One more thing, do you like dogs? I love dogs, Lark nodded. Are you thinking of getting one? I like the idea of a bookshop dog. It adds to the relaxed feel I'm going for. Also, I could use the company at night. It's a wonderful idea. Maya smiled at her new friend. Good. Then we'll see you on Monday morning. She closed the store early and drove her rental car to the nearest rescue shelter. Her heart ached for all the poor dogs who needed love and a good, kind home, and she wished she could take them all. But when she saw the spaniel, she knew she was the one. A King Charles Cavalier, ruby and white, gazed up at her with huge brown eyes, and Maya was lost. Soon, she and the dog were back in the rental car. The spaniel, named Betty, was spread-eagled on the passenger seat, her head laid on Maya's thigh as Maya drove them both back home. Maya brought the dog into the house and let her sniff around where she liked, checking the place out, giving her space. Maya heated a can of soup for her own supper and gave Betty a dish of dog food, which the dog cleaned out in seconds, making Maya laugh. Hungry, girl? After supper, Maya sat out on the porch with Betty on her lap, stroking the dog's soft ears, and for the first time in what seemed like a lifetime she felt contentment. It was late August, and the weather was still warm and sultry, and Maya sat outside for most of the evening reading her book and fussing with Betty. The dog wandered in the yard a little, but cleaved close to Maya, the two of them forming a quick bond. Maya was about to go in after the sun finally set, but was stopped by the sound of singing coming from a car that had pulled up across the street. Two teenage girls, all long legs and wide smiles, piled out of a car tunelessly singing a rock song. Betty looked up at the noise, and Maya smiled to herself, the girl's mood infectious. They noticed her sitting there and waved. She waved back and they came over. Hello, you're new. Maya laughed. Relatively. Maya Gahana. The taller of the two girls grinned. I'm Michonne, and this is my irritating younger sister, Jamelia. We live over there, she waved a hand nonchalantly towards the house across the street, with our mom. Ah, can I pet your dog? She's gorgeous. Of course. Jamelia smiled shyly at Maya. Both girls were gorgeous with their ebony skin, Michonne with hair pulled back in a ponytail and Jamelia's cropped close to her scalp. They were so tall that Maya felt dwarfed, but both were so outgoing and friendly that she found chatting with them easy. It was dark before they knew it, and Michonne and Jamelia stood to leave. "Come over and meet Mom soon. She'd love to get to know you. She's unique. Most moms are." Jamelia grinned. "No, unique is her name." "Ah. Well, I look forward to meeting her." Maya picked Betty up. "Good night, girls, thanks for making my evening." They called their goodbyes, grinning and waving, and Maya's heart lifted. Sweet, sweet girls. She went inside. Betty followed her up the stairs and jumped on the bed, and Maya shrugged. The dog curled up next to her pillow, and when Maya returned from brushing her teeth, she laughed at the dog's guilty look. Maya crawled on the bed next to Betty. "You can stay, gorgeous." She stroked Betty's silky head and kissed the tip of her nose. The dog licked her face once, then burrowed into the crook of her neck. Maya was still smiling as she fell asleep. Both Lark and Betty proved to be huge successes, and Maya found she loved working in the bookstore, getting to know the locals. Lark had an encyclopedic knowledge of books, especially the young adult section, and she and Maya could spend hours just talking about what they were reading at any given time. Lark also adored Betty, which helped, and Betty enchanted almost everyone who came into the store. As summer gave way to fall, and the night began to draw in, Maya and Lark decorated the store with Halloween decorations, and Lark began a Scary Stories for Children afternoon. It was on one of these afternoons that Maya met someone who made her long for her daughter. A beautiful young woman brought her daughter into the store for the story time, and Maya felt her heart stop. The mother clearly had Indian blood in her, and the little girl she was with, about 10 years old Maya guessed, looked so much like an older Luca that Maya felt her chest clench. The woman smiled at her, not realizing Maya's distress. "Hi there. We're not too late, are we?" Maya swallowed. "Of course not. Lark's just setting up." "Hello," she smiled at the young girl. "Would you like a cupcake? These ones are chocolate, the ones with little ghosts on them, and the others are pumpkin spice flavor." The girl nodded shyly. "Thank you." Her mother smiled. "This is Nella." She ruffled her daughter's dark hair and held her hand out to Maya. "Emery Harper." "Maya Gahana. It's good to meet you both. I'm sorry, I can't remember if I've seen you in here before." "First time, but we've been meaning to come in for a while. We're new to the island, but not the area. Are you from Seattle?" Maya shook her head. "New York. I've only been here for a few months, well, 2 months to be exact, but I have to say I love it." Emery beamed at her. "It is wonderful, isn't it? The mountains, the ocean, great place to bring up a child. Nella loves it here." Maya felt another tug on her heart. "Is she your only child?" "Yep, so far, but we're thinking of adopting another." Maya was surprised. "Nella is adopted? She's the image of you." Emery grinned. "I know. We chose a biracial child deliberately, although until we met Nella, we had no idea she would look so much like me. Do you have family with you?" Maya shook her head but said nothing, and Emery didn't press her. They chatted some more, finding common ground, and Maya thought how nice it would be to have Emery as a friend. As if reading her mind, Emery smiled at her. "Would you like to have coffee sometime? I have a feeling you and I could be great friends." "I would love that," Maya said sincerely, feeling her heart lift. "I really would. Look, here's my cell phone number." She handed a card to Emery. "Let's do it soon." "You got it." Emery called her a few days later, and they arranged to meet for coffee at a cafe on the other side of the island. Emery explained she had found it by accident one day, on a walk from their rented home. "We're actually building a place on the shoreline, but it won't be ready for months. Dream home, so Dante, that's my husband, tells me. I think any home with him and Nella is a dream." "Do you work?" "I teach at UW. I used to teach English at Auburn, but now I lecture part-time." Did you have a bookstore in New York? Maya told her about her publishing career, and Emery was impressed. And you didn't want to work in publishing here? I wanted a more laid-back lifestyle. Maya had been practicing that answer, and Emery seemed to buy it. Can I ask a question? Of course. Have you a partner? I'm being nosy, I know, but you're such a lovely person. It seems strange that you're on your own. Maya hesitated for a moment. I was married. He died. Emery's face went red. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude. Maya held her hands up. It's okay. It's complicated, really. He took my daughter and disappeared on Christmas Eve 5 years ago. They found his car with a note next to a bridge. Emery went pale. Oh, Maya. Yes. So the fact is he's dead. She gave a humorless laugh. Sorry, you don't want to hear this. Emery put her hand on Maya's. Listen, if you need to talk about any of it, please know I'm here for you. It must be strange coming to a new place and starting over. I admire that. Maya said goodbye to Emery and drove back to her home. It had felt good to talk about Luca with someone. She had stopped doing that with her friends years ago, the pain too raw. But pretending Luca never existed wasn't an option, and Maya knew that here she had an opportunity to get the pain out, process it, and start over. Betty greeted her excitedly as she opened the door, and Maya spent a few minutes fussing over her beloved dog before dropping her keys on the table and heading into the kitchen. No sooner than she had fed Betty than she heard someone knocking. Jamelia Benjamin grinned at her. Hello again. Mom wanted to know if you'd like to come and eat with us. She's made enough for a small army. Bring Betty too. Maya was tired, but she couldn't say no to Jamelia's hopeful face and thanked her. Can I bring anything? Seriously, we have enough food for about a week. Mom's been practicing some new dishes. On the walk to the Benjamin's house, Jamelia explained that Unique Benjamin was a professional private caterer. So it'll all be good, but there will be a lot of choice. Jamelia introduced Maya to her mother, a striking African-American woman in her early 40s who appraised Maya and nodded, giving her silent approval. The girls haven't been bothering you, have they? Not at all, I love their company. Man, that smells good. Unique smiled. Well, I'm sure Jam's told you what I do for a living. Come and sit with us. Over the most delicious supper, Unique and her daughters quizzed Maya on her life. Jamelia soon excused herself from the table to go play with a slavering Betty, who got excited when Jamelia fed her strips of chicken from her plate. Maya grinned, rolling her eyes. She'll never eat regular doggy chow now. Unique was studying her. So, you own a bookstore? I do. Luca's, down by the harbor. Actually, learning that you're a caterer, I have an idea. I've been wanting to add some refreshments and coffee to the shop. Would you be interested? Unique smiled. You're very sweet, but I'm not much of a baker, although I do have a great contact on the island. I promise you won't be unhappy with her. Thank you, that sounds great. Maya decided that Unique, although friendly, played her cards close to her chest. She wasn't as immediately outgoing as her daughters, but when Maya was leaving, having thanked her host, Unique sent her daughters inside and walked across the street with Maya. Maya, if you ever feel alone or afraid in that big house, there'll always be a spare room for you at our place. Maya was surprised, and Unique laughed at her expression. I know. I look fiercer than I actually am. As a single mother, I've had to be. I don't make friends easily, but I think you might be the exception. Take care of yourself, Maya. Emery slipped into bed next to Dante, and he hooked an arm around her shoulders and put down the book he was reading. Hey, cutie. She kissed him. Good evening, sir. Dante chuckled and rolled her onto her back. Emery cradled his face in her hands. They had been married for 10 years now, but every day she fell more in love with him. They shared the same silly sense of humor, the same self-deprecating mischief, and their love for their daughter had brought them even closer. They made love slowly at first, then as their excitement built, they clung to each other, laughing and urging the other on. Afterward, Dante wrapped his wife in his arms, pressing his lips against her forehead. "Never gonna get tired of doing that with you," he said, and Emery giggled, snuggling in closer to him. "Ditto, big guy." She stroked his back. "I had coffee with the bookstore owner, Maya, today. She's really great, very sweet." "Good to know." Emery chewed on her bottom lip. "I was thinking." "Uh-oh. Haha, funny boy. Now really I was thinking, we should have some friends over for dinner soon. Clem and Maximo, Z and Flint. Maya." She left a pause. "Adam." "Ah." Dante's eyes were twinkling as he grinned at her. "Someone's doing some matchmaking." "No." She extended the word way too long but then giggled. "You caught me. I just think, well, it couldn't hurt." Just promise you won't make it too obvious. I wouldn't want Adam to think we're railroading him. Nor this Maya person." Emery nodded. "Promise." "You know what's weird? She and I could be related. I mean, she's got Indian blood too, but more than that, we actually look similar." She thought some more about what Maya had told her. "I think she's got a pretty tragic past. Another thing you have in common." Emery smiled. "I got my happy ending. And now you want to give this stranger hers?" "Something like that." Emery laughed and kissed him. "And I have this feeling she won't be a stranger. I really liked her, Dante." Dante smiled down at her. "I'm glad, sweetheart, but listen, by all means invite her and the others to dinner. Our home is theirs, you know that. Just don't and try force something." "I swear." Adam had gone back to the club, but his only goal was to see if she had come back, if she had found her courage. He hadn't been able to stop thinking about her, and his heart thudded with disappointment when he saw she hadn't returned. He asked the bartender if he'd seen her, but the man had only shaken his head. "No, man. She never came back. Shame, she had a banging body." Atom had a drink, but then left, to the disappointment of the women who were circling him, but Adam barely registered them. So, it was twice now in his life that he'd felt that instant connection to someone, to a woman, and he'd blown it the second time too. Adam didn't believe in love at first sight, but the raw, unnameable bond he had felt to both women, there must be something in it, it must mean something, surely. "Well, damn," he said to himself now as he drove home to his silent apartment. He had decided to move out to the island while he oversaw the construction of Dante's home, and most of his stuff had been packed up now. He looked around the bare bones of his home and saw that it reflected how he felt in his heart. Almost empty. No, this wasn't going to be his life. The next time he found that connection, and God, how he hoped he would get a third chance, he would act on it. He would make it count. He would find the one.
Chapter 7.
Maya put Betty into the car and packed the dessert she had bought carefully onto the back seat, praying she wouldn't have to make any unnecessarily sharp stops on the way to Emery's house. It was the week before Halloween, and she was enjoying all the decorated houses and porches as she drove across the island. More and more, this island was becoming a home. Back in Manhattan, in Zach's world, she'd had Sakata and Julia, but she'd always found most of Zach's friends dismissive of her. Here, all of her new friends were so different, and yet they shared one vital thing: she believed they cared for her. And she adored them. Lark, her cohort and buddy at the store, despite the age gap, they were two silly schoolgirls giggling together. Michonne and Jamelia made her feel young too, always bringing her gifts like a new top they'd found on one of their many shopping excursions, and making her watch K-pop music videos on YouTube with them, sighing over the beautiful boy bands. Unique had become, if not a mother figure, then certainly a trusted aunt. The older woman was someone Maya could confide in, ask opinions of, ask for advice. Maya would sit with Unique in her kitchen and be her taste tester for the new recipes she was trying out. But it was Emery whom Maya felt closest to. The two women found common ground in their past histories, even to the point where Emery had told her they had both lost a Luca. In Emery's case, it was an old lover, Luca Safran, who had been murdered by Emery's psychotic ex-husband, a man who had almost killed Emery too. Maya was relieved she could talk openly about her daughter, and about her rage for her ex-husband. There were no signs, she said to Emery one afternoon when Emery had come to the bookstore. He was depressed, but why did he have to kill Luca? Why would he do that to me? Emery had been sympathetic. Sometimes we have no idea of the real person we're married to. I suppose in that way, I was lucky. When Ray turned into the murderous jerk he was, I had the clues, or rather the bruises to foreshadow it. Emery had told Maya that in the end, she'd had to deal with Ray herself before he killed anyone else, and Maya knew that feeling. If Zach were still here. I never thought myself capable of killing, but now. Emery had hugged her. Sweetheart, I know. Maya smiled to herself now as she remembered that hug. Emery was something she'd never had, a sister. She drew up to the rented house that Emery and Dante had leased, noting the other expensive cars in the driveway. She wondered who she would meet, whether the Harper's clique was as exclusive as Zach's had been. Somehow, she didn't think so. She took a few deep breaths to quell her nervousness as she rang the bell. Expecting a housekeeper to open the door, she grinned in relief when Emery greeted her with a wide smile. Maya. Come on in, everyone's here. Seeing the faint shiver of trepidation in Maya's eyes, Emery smiled. Don't worry, they're all harmless. It's just the 8 of us. She tucked her arm in Maya's, taking the dessert dish from her. Peach cobbler? You darling, it's my favorite. Good luck to anyone else getting a taste of this. They went to the kitchen first, and Maya almost swooned at the layout, huge with picture windows leading onto a garden at one end. Emery grinned. I know, right? The house we're having built will have an even bigger kitchen, but very much modeled on this one. It was the reason we took this for the time being. Now come and meet the others. Adam was talking to Maximo Neri when Emery returned with the newcomer, and if he was aware he was gaping in shock, then he didn't care. The girl from 5 years ago. The girl from the balcony. What the hell was she doing in Seattle? And Christ, she was just as beautiful as she had been back then. Emery was introducing her to Clementine, Maximo's wife. His heart felt like it would beat out of his chest, and he took too big a slug of his champagne and choked. His face burned as everyone turned to look at him. Sorry. He mumbled it, and wiped his chin with his handkerchief as Emery and the beauty approached. And here, providing our in-house entertainment, Emery said with a sly grin, is Adam. Adam Harcourt, meet Maya Gahana. Maya held out her hand, and Adam could see no recognition of him in her eyes. He took her hand, her touch sending waves of pleasure through him. It's good to meet you. Actually, we have met before. Something flickered in her eyes then, but she smiled shyly. We have? Ah. That smoky voice, he remembered that, and weirdly he thought, I've heard it recently. At Henry and Sakata's party 5 years ago. On the balcony. You were there with your husband? Maya Gahana was staring at him as if she had seen a ghost. Emery sensed the strange tension and broke it by calling everyone into dinner. He thought that Emery would seat him beside Maya Gahana, but then he saw a glance pass between Dante and his wife, and Emery quickly changed her mind, sitting beside Adam herself and sweeping Maya next to Dante. But Adam had a hard job concentrating on the food, as delicious as it was. His eyes were constantly drawn to the beautiful woman across the table. He noticed that whenever she met his gaze, she flushed and looked away, and his body reacted to the blush on her lovely face. Emery nudged him. So, she said, trying to hide a grin, you and Maya have met before? Briefly. She was with her husband. Adam tore his eyes away from Maya for a moment. He's not around anymore? He hated that the idea filled him with a strange happiness. Emery leaned in, lowering her voice. He died. It's complicated, but it's not my story to tell. Let's just say Maya has been through it. She studied him. You like her? He nodded. We had a moment. It remains to be seen whether anything could come of it, but thank you for inviting me here tonight. Emery squeezed his arm. Tread gently. I know that you will. Adam didn't get the chance to talk to Maya throughout dinner or afterward as they retired to the living room for brandy, but when Clem and Maximo were leaving, he saw Maya slip back into the house. Waiting a beat, he followed her when she stepped out into the garden of the property. It's not quite a balcony, but here we are again. He said it softly, and she turned to look at him. For a moment she gazed at him, then a smile crept over her face. We've met since then, Mr. Harcourt. That stopped him, but suddenly he knew she was right. Where? Maya smiled and his whole body responded. Somewhere out of my comfort zone. It took a second, but the realization hit. The club? That was you. She laughed. It was. And you were the perfect gentleman. Don't worry, I won't say anything to your friends. Adam stepped closer, gratified when she didn't move away. I've been thinking about you ever since that night. I even went back to see if you'd been back. I haven't. Too chicken, or rather? I don't know. Maybe it's not for me. I'm sorry to hear about your husband. Her smile faded. Don't be. Okay, that was weird. Can I see you again? Maya gazed at him. The violet contacts were gone and her dark chocolatey eyes were warm, soft. Do you have a pen? He reached into his jacket and pulled out a pen, handing it to her. She took hold of his hand and wrote an address on his palm, handing him the pen back afterward. I'm going home now. I'll wait up until 1 a.m. If you're not there by then, no harm, no foul. Adam's eyebrows shot up, but he saw that her cheeks were flushed. She was trying to be brave. Out of your comfort zone? That remains to be seen. And then she kissed him, briefly, softly like she had in the club that night, and turned and walked back into the house. Adam heard her saying goodbye to Emery and Dante, then a few moments later, her car start. Was he going to do this? He laughed aloud. Hell yes. Even if nothing actually happened between them, not a likely scenario, but hot damn, he was going to take her up on her invitation. He kissed Emery's cheek and hugged Dante. Thanks guys, for a great evening. He could see Emery was dying to ask him about Maya, but he simply grinned at her and said goodbye. Adam got into his car and took a beat to breathe. This was it, this was the moment. Don't blow it. He smiled to himself and started the car. Maya tried not to panic as she parked the car and went into her home. Greeting Betty quickly, she raced upstairs and stripped the bed, putting on fresh sheets, then threw herself into the shower. She dried herself quickly, glancing at the clock. Would he call her bluff and come to see her? God, she hoped so. It had been a risk, a spur-of-the-moment challenge, but all throughout dinner she had cast glances at Adam, and knew she wanted him. That dark hair, wild curls around his head, those brilliant green eyes and the shabby, weary look in them. And the fact he'd been the guy at the club. She'd recognized his low, deep, attractive-as-hell voice as soon as Emery had introduced them, had seen the curve of his sensual mouth and the dimple in his chin. Right then and there, she knew this was serendipity. So, she'd made a decision. Mess the game, she wanted him, and she could tell just by the way he looked at her that he wanted her. Maya just hoped her courage wouldn't fail. She slipped into a light silk robe and brushed out her hair. She heard a car pull up outside and her adrenaline spiked. Don't be a coward, she whispered to her reflection in the mirror and put down her brush. She walked downstairs and opened the door. Adam smiled at her. Hello again. All her nerves disappeared and she went into his arms, her lips seeking his. Adam bent his head to kiss her, his fingers sliding into her hair, pulling her close. The kiss made Maya's head spin, and when they finally broke apart, she took Adam's hand and led him inside.
Chapter 8.
There was no question of small talk. They went to her bedroom, and Adam drew her close. I'm only going to ask this once, my sweet Maya. Are you sure? Maya's gaze was steady on his. More than anything. Adam stroked her cheek, seeming to take in every detail of her face, his gorgeous green eyes intense and filled with desire. Slowly, he hooked a finger in the belt of her robe and pulled it open, letting the silky gown fall apart. Maya thrilled at the intake of breath he gave when he saw her. She shivered through it as Adam stripped his shirt off and covered her body. "Hey, beautiful." Maya felt breathless, her skin covered in a fine sheen of sweat already. She cradled his face in her hands. Adam made love to her, caressing her body, murmuring her name over and over, his lips trailing across her skin. Maya's fingertips stroked up and down his back, feeling the hard musculature, the smooth olive-shaded skin. She couldn't get enough of his beautiful face and his eyes. God, those green eyes, ringed with thick black lashes. She lost herself in them. Breathless, they gazed at each other while they came down from the high, then both of them laughed. "If you don't mind me saying," Adam panted for air, "I've been waiting a long time for that." Maya flushed with pleasure, grinning. "I don't mind you saying that at all." She placed her palm on his chest, almost disbelieving that he was here in her bed. "I remember that Christmas party, and meeting you on the balcony. I thought you were the most beautiful man I had ever seen, and yet you seemed lost. I dreamed about you that night." "You did?" Maya nodded. "I felt guilty because I was married then, and at that time I did love my husband." She swallowed, looking away from his gaze. "But I felt that connection. I just figured it was one of those moments, the lightning bolt moments that were only real in the movies." She looked back at him. "I know now I was wrong." Adam kissed her, tracing the back of his hand down her cheek. "I'd like to get to know you better, Maya. I'd like the chance to." God, people still use the word court. Maya grinned. "I'm sure we can go for ice cream sodas, Grandpa." Ouch. Adam chuckled. "But I'm serious. I know this," he drew his hand down her body, "is hardly us being restrained, but I do want to get to know you properly, Maya Gahana. Twice now you enchanted me, 3 times, and I want more. Does that scare you?" Maya studied him, considering. "Before I answer that, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you still go to the club? And why would you, of all people, need to have anonymous sex? You could have anyone." Adam nodded. "That's fair." He sat back. "The truth is, I didn't want to find anyone. I didn't want to have a relationship." He was silent for a moment. My father passed recently. He and I didn't have the best relationship." "You didn't get along?" "No. I was never enough for him. My mother was never enough for him. Their marriage was combative. A lot of fights." Maya slid her fingers through his. Not the best example to set. She had the feeling there was something else to the story, but didn't want to press him. Adam smiled at her, and she noticed how tired he looked. She wrapped her arm around his waist and laid her head on his chest. "I'm sorry you had to go through that." Adam stroked her hair. "And I'm sorry about your husband. I didn't know who he was in the end. To take my daughter with him. I won't ever forgive him for that. Tell me about her." Maya smiled up at him. "You really want to know?" "I do." And so she told him about Luca, and found that with Adam, talking about her beloved nugget made the pain a bit less, that she could look back with love instead on her daughter. Adam held her while they talked. The night gave way to dawn and Saturday brought rain. Maya listened to the water hitting the window. They'd talked until the early hours, and she'd asked him to stay. He hadn't hesitated. Now she lay wrapped in his arms, his lips against the back of her neck. Maya felt something she hadn't had for years. Contentment. She knew it wouldn't last, that this night had been a fairy tale, but for now, she just enjoyed the feel of his big body next to hers. She turned in his arms, and he opened his eyes and smiled. "Good morning." "Good morning. You're so beautiful." Adam pressed his lips against hers, then grinned apologetically. "Sorry about my morning breath." "Ha, ditto. I have a spare toothbrush." He followed her into the small ensuite bathroom, and they brushed their teeth, standing at the sink together. Maya pulled him into the shower, and together they soaped each other's skin, laughing and joking around. Outside, the fall leaves were a glorious riot of colors, and they sat out on her porch swing, ignoring the bite of cold in the air. Adam put his arm around her shoulders, pressing his lips against her temple. "This is a peaceful street." "It is. Do you live in the city?" "Mostly, although I've rented a place here while I work on the Harper's house." Maya nodded. "Emery's been so sweet to me." "She's a sweetheart, all right. Dante's a lucky man. To tell the truth, I owe them. This project, their new home, it's given me back some of my old passion for building homes, for designing them. My company grew so quickly, and I'm not bragging, but it grew so quickly that almost straight away, I moved away from doing the thing I love, being an architect." Maya smiled up at him. "So now you're getting back to basics?" "More like concentrating on the things that matter to me. Like trying to have more meaningful relationships with any remaining distant family, with my friends, with you, I hope." Maya leaned her forehead against his. "I like the sound of that." She sighed and checked her watch. "And I hate to do this, but I have a bookstore to open. Can I drive you?" "It's okay, I have my car, but if you're free later, I'd like to cook supper for you." Adam kissed her. "You have a deal, beautiful. I'll bring the wine." Lark squinted at her boss as she opened the bookstore. "You look different." "Do I?" Maya was all innocence, but when, a half-hour later, her phone beeped with a message from Adam, she couldn't hide her smile. Lark pointed at her, her mouth gaping. "You hooked up." Maya rolled her eyes but couldn't help grinning. "Maybe I did, maybe I didn't." Lark did a little dance around the store, making Maya laugh, but stopped when a few customers entered the store. Lark slipped behind the register with Maya. "So who?" Maya cut her eyes to the customers, and Lark nodded. "Fine," she said, "but as soon as we're alone, details." But the store was busy all that day with people enjoying the autumn day. Both Maya and Lark were busy helping the customers, chatting with them, and while Lark was settled in the children's corner, storytelling, Maya was at the register, handling purchases. She looked up as a middle-aged man, heavily bearded, came into the shop. She didn't recognize him, but that wasn't anything unusual. New customers appeared every day, and this man was unremarkable. It was only when he brought his purchase to the desk that Maya felt a pang. A children's book, A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. It had been Luca's favorite. Maya pushed back the spike of pain that shot through her, and gave the man a smile. "A good choice. For someone special?" "My daughter." The man was unsmiling and his tone abrupt and clipped. He had the blackest eyes she had ever seen behind thick glasses. There was something creepy about the way he looked at her. His beard was jet black, his hair under a flat cap the same color, and Maya noticed now that it seemed off. "Well, I hope she enjoys it." She heard the bell on the door jingle and looked around him toward the entrance, eager for the man to leave. She smiled when she saw that Adam was walking through the door. She forgot about the creepy guy, who turned and stalked out as she went to greet Adam. Adam touched a finger to her cheek and she smiled. She loved that he was respectful enough not to kiss her in public yet, that he would wait to see how their relationship developed, and how she would approach telling her friends and coworkers about him. "I'm playing hooky," he explained, "just for a few moments. I had to come to Main Street for some paint swatches." "Paint swatches already, hey?" Maya stuck her tongue in her cheek. "Man, you build houses real fast." Adam grinned sheepishly. "Yeah, that was a poor excuse you got me. I just wanted to see you, but while I'm in town, I'll pick up the wine for later." Maya flushed with pleasure, and she nodded over to a quieter area of the store, away from Lark's curious stare. "Listen. I feel a little odd saying this, but I want to be honest from the start." "Uh-oh." But he was grinning, and she chuckled. "Nothing bad, I swear. I liked waking up with you this morning." Adam touched her face again. "Why, Ms. Gahana, are you asking me to spend the night again?" How very modern of you. She crossed her eyes and poked out her tongue. If you're lucky, I'll show you an ankle. Hussy. Maya giggled. It felt so good to laugh with him. By the way, I'm not exactly Ina Garten, but I make a mean lasagna. Good enough? My mother was Italian, he grinned, and she groaned. Ah, no fair. He laughed, throwing his head back. But she was a terrible cook, and if she were here, she'd tell you the same. Oh, you kidder. She prodded his side and he ducked away, laughing. You are trouble, Adam Harcourt. Your kind of trouble? His eyes were soft on hers, and at the moment, as far as Maya was concerned, no one else existed in the world. Oh yes, she said, you're exactly my kind of trouble.
Chapter 9.
She knew she would never get tired of this, and over the last few weeks, making love with Adam had become almost an addiction. They even made love in the bookstore after closing one night, Adam tumbling her to the floor as they both laughed and joked around. And every day since they'd woken up together, neither feeling crowded nor that their relationship was going too fast. They talked about everything, Maya even sharing her pain over Luca and tales of her relationship with Zach. Her relationship with Adam was so different, it felt equal, she told him one night over dinner. With Zach, there was always the feeling that he was the one in charge, that I had no agency, and I, being young and naive, thought that was what marriage or a relationship was. Was he ever abusive? Maya shook her head. No, looking back, it was more like he was controlling under the guise of. She faltered, then shrugged. Of what? I now realize I had no idea who the man was. Do you miss him? No. This time she didn't hesitate. No, not at all. I was 21 when I married him. He was my first. She chewed her lip. I guess I just got caught up in everything. Love bombing, that's a good word for it. He was full on all the time. She unconsciously touched her throat. Looking back now, I felt suffocated, but I didn't know anything else. Adam stroked her cheek. We've been spending a lot of time together. I hope you don't feel that way now. I don't. Quite the opposite. They smiled at each other, linking their fingers. It's strange, but it's like I've known you for years, but at the same time, I've barely scratched the surface. He leaned forward and kissed her. And I can't wait to find out what's next. Maya smiled as Adam kissed the dog's silky head. She really is a little cutie. A home isn't a home without a dog. I agree. Adam kissed Maya's mouth. I have to say, I always thought I was a city guy, but spending all this time out here on the island, it's a whole different way of life. He smoothed Maya's hair back from her face. Even though I've lived here most of my life, I haven't really even explored the other islands. Have you? I've been to Vashon and Whidbey, but only briefly. We should go explore together. Maya smiled at him. I'd like that. She glanced over at the clock. Hey, if we're going to make supper with Em and Dante, we'd better get ready. It was so natural between them, Maya mused, as they dressed to go out. A lot of Adam's clothes had migrated here over the past weeks, just from necessity, and his wash bag was a permanent presence in her bathroom. Every day after work, he would come over, and she would have already prepared supper for both of them. Maya chewed her lip now. There was something she had been considering for the last few days, but it would radically change their relationship, and after only a few weeks, was it too soon? Remember your new mantra, take the leap. Adam. He looked up and gave her that devastating smile. Yeah, babe? Maya swallowed hard and tried to keep the nervous quiver out of her voice. It seems ridiculous you're paying rent on a house you never use. She took a deep breath. Why don't you? I mean, if it's not too soon and if you want, it could be just for while you're working on the Harper house. She was rambling now and faltered. Adam's smile widened, and he came to her, cupping her cheek in his warm palm. Maya, I can't think of anything else I'd like better than to move in here with you. I've practically taken over, as it were. But yes, let's make this official, shall we? He pressed his lips to hers. You and Betty are my family now. Maya's heart swelled up, not least because he included her beloved dog. I'm so glad. One condition. I pay the rent. Allah. Maya shook her head. The most I'll agree to is halvesies. Adam chuckled. I knew that, but I thought I'd try. I respect that, babe. He stroked her face. This isn't just a relationship, this is a partnership. Always. There's no controlling presence in this, not ever. Just reciprocity. I wish that for you above all else, except for one thing. What's the one thing? His eyes were serious now. That you could see Luca again. In that split second, Maya knew she was in love with Adam Harcourt. Emery kept shooting excited glances at Maya and Adam throughout dinner, and afterward, when Maya volunteered to help her with the dessert, the two women went to the kitchen. Maya laughed at Emery's eager expression. Just ask whatever it is you're wondering, Em. Emery giggled. Sorry. It's just so wonderful. You two are adorable together. We are, aren't we? Maya couldn't help laughing then. He's just the most wonderful man. I can't believe he was single for so long. Emery nodded, glancing at the door to see if the men could hear them. Between you and me, he was pretty messed up by his parents. His father, and this is according to Dante, his father was a jerk, a weak man who couldn't express his emotions, and Adam's mother had mental health issues. Not that it was her fault, but she knew and refused to get help for them, even if it meant her own son suffering the consequences. Maya made a disgusted sound, and Emery nodded. Quite. She shook her head. I just don't get it, these people that treat their kids so cavalierly. They just don't get it. Maya nodded. Talking of, where's Nella this evening? Emery's lovely face broke into a smile. At a sleepover. Which reminds me. Halloween night. Nella wanted to ask you herself, but she was too shy. Go for it. She wanted to know if you would go trick-or-treating with her. She said, and I hope this doesn't upset you, that she was sad you couldn't take Luca trick-or-treating, and she wanted you to experience what it was like to go with a child. Maya's heart thumped, both with sadness and with love for the sweet young Nella. That's beautiful, Em. Her voice got choked, and she had to swallow the lump in her throat. Tell Nella I would love to. In fact, why don't we make it an occasion? I'll open the bookstore for hot drinks and pumpkin pie, and we'll go out from there? Emery high-fived her. It's a date. In the car on the way home, Maya told Adam how moved she was by Nella's request. She's such an adorable kid, and she's the same age as Luca would have been now. She put her hand on her chest. Oh God, sorry, I think I'm about to cry. Adam chuckled and reached for her hand with his free one. Baby, go ahead and cry all you want. A few tears came out, but the love she felt from Adam, from Emery and Dante, from Nella conquered any sadness. They pulled up to her house and Maya frowned. Didn't we leave the porch light on? They got out as they moved closer. Maya gave a gasp of horror. The door is open. She darted towards it, and Adam caught her just as she was about to race up the stairs. Wait, baby. There could be someone in there. Maya felt panic. Betty. The dog wasn't rushing out to meet them, and Maya was filled with a dread. Betty. Adam tucked Maya behind him as he advanced up the stairs. He reached inside the open door and flipped the light on. They both listened for any sound, but there was none, at first. Then with a sigh of relief, they heard a whine coming from behind the closed kitchen door. Adam went to it and opened it, and Betty shot out, greeting them excitedly. Maya felt the tension drain out of her when she saw Betty wasn't hurt. She picked up the dog and hugged her close, following Adam as he checked out every room. He paused as he reached the stairs to the second floor. Wait down here, sweetheart. If I yell, get out of the house, into the car, and lock the doors. Call the police. Okay? Maya nodded, her eyes wide and frightened. She listened as Adam took the stairs 2 at a time and checked out the second floor. Moments passed. All clear, baby. He appeared at the top of the stairs, his relieved smile mirroring hers. Maya put Betty down, and the dog immediately went to the door, scratching to be let out. She needs to pee. Maya went out with Betty into the front yard. The street was quiet, and a faint breeze blew through the trees, rustling the leaves. Maya could hear Adam in the house, checking the windows. She must have left the door open when they left. Dumb mistake to make even on a safe street like this. Betty peed and then sniffed around, and as Maya watched her dog, she noticed a piece of paper fluttering, stuck in the fence. She went over and plucked it out and froze. It was a photograph of Luca. What the actual hell? She murmured to herself. She looked up and around, not really knowing what or who she was looking for, but her shock discombobulated her. A movement far across the street in a bank of trees caught her eye, and a shiver went up her spine. Someone was watching her.
Chapter 10.
Maya waited for Adam to come back, and when she heard his knock, she let him in. "No one there, sweetheart." She sighed. "I'm sorry, you must think I'm paranoid. It's just..." She held up the photograph of Luca. How the hell did this get outside? Where was it in the house? She thought about it. I think it was lying on a stack on the table in the living room. It must have blown out when the door was open. She nodded. That's the only explanation. The only non-creepy one, at least. She touched the photograph. It's one of my favorites. I'd put it with some others to frame. For so long I couldn't even bear to look at pictures of her. Adam smoothed his hand down her hair. I think that's a great idea. I could make you a frame. You could. He smiled, nodded. I studied carpentry as an elective. I love to make things. You are the most unusual billionaire, Adam Harcourt. She stood and kissed him. Let's go to bed. Maya didn't know what woke her in the night, but as she sat up, careful not to wake Adam, tensed and listening to everything in the home. Betty was asleep at the end of the bed, but she opened her eyes and looked up as Maya slipped from the bed. Maya stroked her silky head. Stay, Betty Boo, she whispered, and the dog licked her hand and settled back down. Maya went down to the kitchen and grabbed a glass. She filled it from the cold faucet and drank it down. Outside, the night was moonless and pitch dark, and she stared out of the window, focusing past her own reflection. Maya hid her yawn behind her hand, but Lark grinned at her. Saw that. Sorry, I was up late. Lark snickered. I bet. Maya grinned but didn't respond. They were decorating the bookstore's window with more fake spiders' webs. Maya had put a poster in the window announcing the bookstore would be open for warm spiced apple juice and pumpkin pie the following day, and that any parents wanting to bring their kids to trick or treat were welcome to base themselves there. After lunch, Maya drove to the farmer's market and stocked up on locally made candy and sweets to hand out, throwing in some grapes and apple slices to make little baggies to give out. She thought she should at least make it look a little like she was encouraging healthy eating, although she had no doubt the kids would ignore them. At the checkout, a magazine caught her eye. A small headline, low on the cover of the national publication. 5 years later, the mysterious disappearance of Zachary Konta. Oh, God damn it. Maya shoved the magazine onto her pile of groceries and didn't meet the cashier's eyes, even though she knew there was no way the young girl would make the link. But paranoid now, Maya went back to her car and sat in the parking lot, flicking to the article. She braced herself for a photograph of Luca, but found instead just a small photograph of herself and Zach. She hardly recognized herself in the photo. The biggest picture, though, was the posed and professionally shot photograph of Tracy Goldingham, her beautiful thin face in repose. Maya nearly gagged when she read the timbre of the piece. Tracy was mourning the loss of her true soulmate, telling the writer that she and Zach shared a special bond, that she, if no one else, still wanted to know the truth. Others, including his wife, have moved on, healed. My heart, my life will never be the same. It's a shame he wasn't as loved in life as he still is, by me, in death. Oh, go screw yourself, Tracy, you skank on wheels. Maya was incensed. What a jerk move, but then why was she surprised? Adam was at the bookstore when she got back. He rocked back when he saw her expression. "Oh, what's up?" Maya handed him the article, watched him as he read it. Adam's eyebrows shot up. "Wow. What a piece of work. Right?" Maya smiled humorlessly. "Notice she didn't use my name once?" "I did." Adam looked at the picture of her and Zach and traced her face with his fingertip. "Can I say something?" "Of course." She sat down next to him, her anger dissipating now. Who cared what Tracy did? That life was a million miles away from her now. Adam smiled at her. "I don't recognize you in that picture. You look somehow, what's the right word? Caged." As he said it, Maya realized he was exactly right, exactly right. Zachary Kanta had decided he wanted her and had put her into a cage of sorts. Every decision was his, and as a feminist, now Maya felt shame. Why hadn't she seen it? Why hadn't she stood up for herself? "You okay?" There was a crease between Adam's eyebrows as he frowned at her, concerned, and she smoothed it away with her finger. "I'm fine. That's not my life now." Adam leaned his forehead against hers. "You're damn straight it isn't. Our life together will always be happy, I promise you that." She smiled softly. "Our life. You got it, beautiful." The article put to the back of her mind, Maya concentrated on the joy that her life now brought her. As the trick-or-treaters began to fill the shop, and the scent of cinnamon and pumpkin spice drifted around, she smiled at both the customers and her friends, her family now. Unique and her girls had come along bearing vast tins of food that Unique had prepared for the event, a surprise for Maya, which almost made her cry. She introduced Emery and Dante to Unique, and Nella was enchanted by the twin girls and their loud, exuberant personalities. Later, when it was dark, they all went out onto the streets to trick-or-treat. Nella held Maya's hand the whole time, chatting away excitedly to her aunt, and Maya felt something inside her shift. She glanced at Adam, who was walking with them, and he smiled at her. Maya had the strangest feeling he was reading her mind, especially when he gave her a small nod. Did he really know what she was thinking? That she would love a child with him? Because she did. So badly. It was crazy, yes, but in her heart, she knew it was her destiny to make a family with this incredible man. At the final house, Nella hit pay dirt and crowed delightedly to everyone in earshot. Emery and Dante teased their daughter as Maya took out her phone to snap a picture of them all. As they posed, and Maya stepped away from the group toward the edge of the sidewalk, Nella suddenly ran over to her, slipped and tumbled into the road. In a heartbeat, everything changed. The car coming at them didn't stop, and as Maya scooped a crying Nella up, she lost her own balance. She shoved Nella into her mother's arms as she fell, and bounced spectacularly off of the car's hood. Time seemed to stop as she was spun in the air, hearing screams around her. Then she crashed to the cold, hard asphalt and everything went dark.
Chapter 11.
Maya pushed the nurse's hands away and struggled into a sitting position. "I'm really fine." Adam rolled his eyes as the nurse pursed her lips. "Maybe so, Ms. Gahana, but until the doctor clears you, you need to stay in bed." Maya sighed but gave in. Her body ached like hell, but thankfully there were no broken bones. Maya was more worried about Nella, but when a pale, shaken Emery assured her that Nella was unhurt, just worried about her aunt, Maya was relieved. Adam took her hand, wincing when he saw the cuts on it. She had multiple contusions, cuts, and her face felt swollen. She dared not look at her reflection. The doctor came at last and told her he'd prefer if she stayed in overnight to be sure, but that there were no head injuries to be concerned about. "You might have a slight concussion, and obviously you'll ache for a while. Take aspirin for the pain, maybe some ibuprofen too. You'll be fine. I would prefer not to stay the night." "She'll stay the night," Adam said firmly, but when Maya glared at him, he seemed to realize he was breaking his promise to her. "Of course, it's not my decision. Right?" Adam squeezed her hand in apology as Maya looked back at the doctor. "Seriously, I'd rather go home." "I don't see any harm in that. Just rest for a few days, please, and if you feel worse, come right on back." He smiled at them and left them alone. Adam sat next to Maya on the bed and kissed her temple. "I'm sorry, baby. You just scared the crap out of me. And that jerk didn't even stop." Maya shrugged. "These things happen. I just want to go home, take a bath, and go to bed with you." She wiggled her eyebrows at him and he laughed. "Ambitious, but I somehow don't think we'll be doing anything but sleeping tonight." Maya grumbled, but it turned out he was right. After a hot soak in the tub, she fell asleep almost immediately. Adam lay beside her until he was sure she was completely out, then got up. Betty immediately took his place next to Maya, and Adam grinned at the dog. "You keep her safe and warm, Betty Boo." He went downstairs and closed the kitchen door behind him. He called Dante. "How's Nella?" "She's fine. We plied her with sweets and cake and she stayed up way past her bedtime, but she's out now. Em's just checking on her." "How's Maya?" "Bruised, battered, but she'll be okay." Adam took a deep breath in. "Dante, you saw that car? It drove right at her." Adam nodded to himself. "It wasn't an accident, was it?" "I don't think so. Listen, I spoke to the detective, told them everything. They don't hold out hope the car will be found. There are not a lot of security cameras on that particular street. Something tells me the driver knew that." Adam felt his heart sink. Who, though? Who the hell would want to hurt Maya? Dante was silent for a moment, then sighed. "I know all about vengeful exes, Adam." "God. You really think this is Kanta?" Adam rubbed his head. "He was or is not a good guy, Adam. He had a lot of people fooled for a long time. You have people in Manhattan. 3 or 4 private hires. They've not come up with anything so far, no sign of him. If he is out there somewhere with Maya's daughter, he's well hidden. We know he was siphoning off money from his company for years. He has unlimited funds to hide forever if that's his game. Except, why would he risk it all now to come back for Maya?" Adam let out a deep, ragged breath. "Because she's happy. From what I know of narcissists, he won't let her be happy without him." Another silence. "Adam, your mom. We don't need to talk about her, but yes. Yes." He ended the call to Dante and sat in the dark kitchen for a while, thinking. He hated that he was going behind Maya's back to snoop into her past, but if there was one thing that Adam wanted more than anything, it was to give Maya a final answer. Was Luca alive? And why the hell would Zach Kanta do this to the wife he professed to love? Adam thought he knew the answer to that, but it meant him thinking about his own experiences, and he wasn't ready for that. And he wouldn't lay that burden on Maya. No. He would protect her all he could while they were trying to find out where Kanta had hidden himself. Because Adam would bet his life that he was alive. He could only hope that somewhere Luca was alive too. He went back to the bedroom and lay down next to Maya and Betty. Betty stirred and sleepily snuffled at him. He stroked the dog's head, then tucked a lock of Maya's dark hair away from her face. There was a nasty bruise on her cheek, a cut over her eye, but to him, she looked more beautiful than anything. In the few weeks they had been together, Adam had finally learned what a true partnership was. Fun, laughter, truth, as well as the incredible sex. Now he truly knew what the term soulmate meant, and he was damned if anyone was going to ruin their love. Love. Adam chuckled softly to himself. For most of his life, he hadn't known what that meant. The love he had was from his friends, not his family, and now. "I love you," he whispered to her, wishing he had the courage to say it when she could hear him. "I love you so very much, Maya Gahana." He leaned over and kissed her lips gently, so gently that he knew he wouldn't wake her. He wrapped his arm around her waist and closed his eyes. Tonight had been a nightmare. Adam could still feel the sheer horror and the panic he'd experienced when the car had hit Maya. Her little body flying through the air. Her crumpled body on the asphalt, bloodied and broken. He'd thought she was dead. God. Adam vowed then it would be the worst thing he would ever let happen to her. Not again, he thought. Not ever again. He dumped the car, cleaned it of all trace of himself. He switched the license plates, just to be sure, but he was confident they wouldn't be able to trace him, even if they had his DNA on file. She'd probably given his DNA to them after he'd gone missing 5 years ago. He supposed it was meant to be so touching, the way she had looked for him all those years, the pleas on television and in the papers, the hiring of the private investigators. All of it a lie, her concern, her worry false. Skank. If only you had been so true when we were married, my love. It had displeased him when she had divorced him, but he could understand her anger. He'd taken her most precious thing, Luca. And now, after all of that, she had moved on with Adam Harcourt, that messed up piece of crap. Had Adam told her all about his past? He'd found out about Harcourt and what had happened to him after he'd seen the man flirting with Maya on the balcony at Henry's party. True, they had only spoken a few words, but he had been in shadows watching them. He knew an instant connection when he saw it. He had almost been on the cusp of changing his mind about what he was going to do, but seeing them together, seeing that man dare to smile, to touch what was his. He'd known then they were sleeping together, and now she'd taken their relationship public. The grieving widow finds love again. Ah, how sweet. Zach Conta had 2 choices back then. Kill her or do what he did, take him and his daughter out of the loop. He chose the second option, but now he was rethinking that choice. Because she was sleeping with Adam Harcourt, because she had moved on from him. Because she was happy. Not for much longer, my love. But first, he would make her suffer like no one had ever suffered before. He knew that before he killed her, before he felt her blood on his hands, he, Zachary Conta, would send his beautiful ex-wife to hell.
Chapter 12.
It took a few weeks for her body to return to normal, and even then, she still ached. I guess the bruises went deeper than I realized, she said to Adam one day. They had healed, but it felt like some were bone deep, and belatedly, she wondered if she were slipping back into depression. The difference this time was she could talk to her partner in life about it. Adam listened to her without judgment and suggested she talk to a therapist or see a doctor. There's no shame in asking for help, baby. She was more grateful to him that she could express. God, this man. It was almost Thanksgiving, and Maya had invited the Harpers and the Benjamins to her place for the traditional meal. Lark was with her family but said she would stop by later in the day for mulled wine and pumpkin pie. Adam had taken the day before Thanksgiving off to help her prepare the house, their house now. He had moved in the day after she asked him to, and since then, they had fallen in love with the place. So much so that Adam had approached the owner to see if he would sell it to them. Maya had been surprised. Don't you want somewhere grander? Adam had shaken his head. No, I really don't. This place is plenty big for us and Betty, for our kids. It was strange how quickly they had gotten used to the idea that yes, this was it for both of them. They had found their person. And now they had something else to celebrate, something they would tell their friends about over dinner. Maya grinned to herself now as she prepared the stuffing for the turkey. She could hardly believe it herself. She thought back now to when they had decided to do the crazy thing. A few days after her accident, she had gone out onto the porch to find Adam sitting pensively on the swing seat. She sat down next to him, smoothing his dark curls away from his face. Are you okay? He turned to her, a warm smile spreading across his gorgeous features, and she saw raw, pure emotion in his eyes. I am, baby, I think for the first time in forever. I'm changing, Maya, and it's only for the better. I don't see how you could get much better, she joked, but grinning, he shook his head. There are things that I've never shared with anyone. Stuff from my childhood. My parents, they were not good people, and I've been so scared that I would turn out the same. Not a chance. She kissed his cheek. Adam wrapped his arms around her. I hoped not, but it's hard to see yourself clearly. Things get warped. But being with you, if I were that bad, you wouldn't be with me. You are not bad, Adam. Not even a single cell in your body is bad. You are the most wonderful person I've ever met. You are kind, considerate, funny, and attractive as hell. The full package. She stroked his face, her eyes steady on his. And I love you. His smile was delighted. As I love you, my darling, my beautiful Maya, so very much. They kissed, and soon Maya had taken his hand and led him inside and upstairs to bed. Maya smiled now. Maya stretched now. All of her cuts and bruises were gone, only a little muscle ache remained. She looked up as Adam returned from the market with the turkey. "Whoa, Nellie," she said, her eyes boggling at the size of it. "How many people are we feeding?" Adam grinned. "Well, there's the 8 of us, and then there's—" He nodded to Betty, who sat between them, her eyes riveted to the uncooked turkey. "She knows." Maya laughed. "In that case, you probably should have gotten 2. She kissed Adam and ruffled the dog's head. "Patience, Betty Boo, tomorrow will come soon enough." She watched as Adam hefted the turkey onto the table. "Geez, it is big though. I think I have a pan to fit it, but it's packed away in the attic. Want me to get it?" "No, I'll go. I might find some other useful stuff up there." She glanced at the clock. "You could give Guts Mulligan her supper, though." Betty's ears pricked up despite the nickname. Adam laughed, and Betty got excited as he moved to where they kept the dog food. "We're so domesticated. Aren't we?" Maya chuckled. "I'll be right back." She pulled down the ladder to the attic and climbed up. It was remarkably light and airy for an attic space, her few boxes she hadn't opened neatly stacked at one end. She sorted through them, found the items she wanted, and turned to go back downstairs. Then she saw it. A small item, almost in darkness at the far end of the attic space. She frowned. She hadn't noticed it before. She walked over, but as she realized what it was, all the breath left her body, she went ice cold and her legs gave way. She sank to the floor, reaching for the small woolen hat. The blue woolen hat with the pink star on it. Luca's favorite hat. The hat she had been wearing when she disappeared. Maya couldn't breathe. She opened her mouth to scream and nothing would come out. She clutched the hat to her face, breathing in, trying to see if any of Luca's baby powder scent remained. Maya closed her eyes. Time stood still, and it wasn't until she felt Adam's arm around her that she looked up at him, tears swimming in her eyes. She held out the hat to him, and he took it, turning it over in his hands. She watched his expression, saw the sympathy, his pain for her in his eyes. "Oh, my darling," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. I wish I could bring her back to you." Maya shook her head and finally found her voice, even if it cracked and broke. "No, you don't understand. I don't know why this is here. It can't be here, it isn't possible, she was wearing this." Her voice rose now, hysterical. "She was wearing this when he killed her."
Chapter 13.
Adam shot a glance at Maya. She was doing an incredible job of hiding how she was really feeling, and none of their friends had picked up on her sadness. Yesterday had been traumatic. They talked for hours, Maya going over everything, doubting her own mind about what Luca had been wearing that terrible day. It had upset her to think she had misplaced memories of her daughter. "I was so sure. In my mind, I've had this picture in my head for 5 years about what she was wearing the very last time I saw her. To think I was wrong makes me want to scream, Adam." "Maybe you weren't wrong." Adam had stroked her hair, but Maya, too agitated to be comforted, stood up, walking away from him, pacing the room. "Then how is it here?" "How?" Adam gave her a moment before speaking again. "Darling, perhaps the police returned it to you and you just forgot." Maya didn't answer, and he could see she was desperately trying to believe that was the case, because the alternatives were too messed up to consider. That either she was crazy or someone had put the hat there. Geez. When she'd finally fallen asleep, he'd put a call into his private investigators in New York, not caring that it was 5 hours ahead, nor that it would be the early hours of the morning there, but none of them had anything to report. Adam then called his own head of security. "I want a discreet, and I mean discreet, watch on Maya's bookstore. Also, for now, keep your distance, but I want her protected wherever she goes." Wherever who goes. He turned to see Maya watching him. I'll call you back, he told his security chief and ended the call. He stood and faced Maya, unable to read her expression. My security team. I want you protected. From whom? She looked at him askance. Adam hesitated. This was the moment. He'd have to share his possibly insane theory with her, and worse, it could terrify her. From the possibility someone means you harm. The accident that might not have been an accident at all. The open door. The hat. He took a deep breath. The fact that no bodies were ever found. To his surprise, Maya didn't freak out on him. Instead, she sat down heavily next to him. I've been thinking the same thing. It just seems weird that Tracy would choose to do that now. And by now, I don't mean the 5-year anniversary, I mean, just when I found happiness with you. So yeah, maybe it is Zach pulling the strings, I wouldn't put it past him. Adam studied her. I've had people in New York digging around. And? She didn't seem either pissed or surprised. Nothing much except, he wasn't a good guy. Not that we've found any evidence of anything, but the people we've talked to, very few of them had good things to say. Maya's expression was stone. He either killed his daughter or let me believe he did. That's enough for me to believe he's scum. Anger rippled through her voice. And if he's back to torment me? Adam saw her hands clench into fists. What? She looked at him with a steady gaze. You can't kill a dead man twice. He should have been shocked, he thought now, but truthfully, there wasn't any doubt in his mind that he would help Maya hide the body if it came to that. But she didn't say anything else, and when morning came, she seemed sheepish. He'd been shaving when she slid behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist. You know I was just fronting yesterday, right? I'm not a psycho, I swear. Adam chuckled. Baby, I know that. And you have more than enough justification for it. I'd help you hide the body, boo. But he'd said it in a joking way, and Maya had chuckled. That might be the most romantic thing you've ever said to me. She kissed him as he laughed. Hey Clyde, wanna come do me in the bedroom? Try and stop me, Bonnie. He chased her into the bedroom, Maya screaming with laughter as he wrestled her to the bed. All tension seemed gone, and later that afternoon, as their friends all gathered at their home, Maya seemed perfectly contented, and he was glad of it. Maya had knocked it out of the park with the Thanksgiving spread, and after the meal, everyone sat around in the living room, groaning at their full bellies. Jamelia lay on her back on the floor, staring up at the ceiling like she was in a stupor. Jams, are you okay? Maya grinned down at her. Food coma. Mom, I think you have competition. Ha. Maya said, flushing, giving Unique a nervous glance. Believe me, one meal does not make a chef. I bow to you, my queen. Unique cackled as Maya bowed, waving her hands at her. Girl, sit down. The meal was amazing, don't sell yourself short. Besides, if I ever need help to cater, I'll be able to ask you. If you want drive all your clients away, sure. Adam will tell you, today was a fluke. Maya sat down on Adam's lap, hooking her arm around his neck. Isn't that right, honey? Adam grinned up at her. Loaded question, all right, I'm kidding. No, she's a great cook, Unique, one of her many talents. Mushy. Emery pretended to gag, then laughed. So, what is this announcement you were going to make? Maya and Adam looked at each other, then both chuckled. You tell them, baby. Maya's face burned, but she smiled. Well, we got married. Her friends' faces were identical with shock. What? Emery gaped at them. It took Nella, the 10-year-old, to react first. Yay. She launched herself at Maya and Adam, who laughed and hugged the girl. Then all of their friends were congratulating them, and it took a few minutes for them to calm down. So details? Michonne said, settling back down in her seat. When, where, how? So, Maya told her. Adam had proposed to her, almost as a joke at first, one evening as they were watching TV on her couch. But the joke had tuned into something more serious, or rather, they started to dare each other to make the leap by making ridiculous bets until they both realized they both wanted it more than anything. So, we went to City Hall the next day before we lost our nerve. I'm sorry we didn't tell anyone, but we wanted to get used to the idea first. Adam stroked his hand down Maya's cheek. We like to say we got married by accident, but it was the best decision I have ever made. Right back at you, hubby. She kissed him, then glanced across at Emery. Emery Harper, are you crying? No. But she was. Sorry, I'm a sucker for a love story. Congratulations, guys. Some people might think it's fast, but you know what? Anyone who saw you together wouldn't think so. Hell, I wish we'd known. We could have brought champagne. Adam tipped Maya from his lap, making her giggle. Just so happens. He disappeared into the kitchen and brought back a bottle of champagne, struggling to hang on to the flutes. Maya rescued him, and soon they all held their flutes up in a toast. To Maya and Adam. May your lives be happy, healthy, and full of joy. Congrats, kids. Dante raised his glass, and the others echoed him. Later, well after midnight when all their friends had left, Maya and Adam showered together, then went to bed. Adam stroked his hand down her body. Are you tired, my love? Not for you, she whispered and pressed her lips to his. Maya's hair tumbled around her shoulders, and in the moonlight Adam gazed up at her, wondering at this woman, this incredible woman, who loved him without condition, without taking anything from him. They fell asleep soon, snuggled together in the bed.
Chapter 14.
The nightmare began like it always did, in his childhood home, a vast, cavernous, cold mansion he'd always hated. Despite the size of it, he could still hear his mother and father screaming at each other, each barbed attack more vicious, more hateful. How could he be related to these monsters? He would hide. As a kid, and even now as a grown man, the imperative was to run far away, get out, hide. But in the nightmare, there was no escape. The walls were solid gray stone, and every door he closed melted away as the banshee cries of his mother came closer. She would come to him, desperate to love and be loved, but utterly incapable of that feeling. So she would punish him, again and again, verbally, physically, until he was bleeding and broken and begging to die. And then one night she tried to give him his wish. He had fallen asleep after stealing liquor from his father's cabinet. He was 14 years old and home from boarding school, his only respite, and his physical beauty was beginning to shine. Both boys and girls were entranced by it. His mother was jealous. He was in a deep sleep, dreamless, when he felt something cold against his chest. He woke to see his mother straddling him, but she wasn't trying to assault him. Instead, she held a knife in her hand, the tip against his chest, over his heart. It's for the best, my darling, she whispered and leaned her weight on the knife. In reality, Adam had thrown her off before the knife could penetrate his heart, and his mother, screaming, had turned the knife on herself and slashed her wrists as Adam staggered from the room. But in the dream, the knife pierced him all the way through, and the pain was searing. Tonight's nightmare was particularly horrifying. As his mother murdered him, he saw a shadowy figure behind her, a man carrying the body of a woman, and he knew without a doubt it was Zachary Kanta, carrying Maya's dead body. As Adam bled out, Kanta threw Maya onto him. Keep her. Kanta growled. You deserve each other. Maya's eyes were open and staring, sightless and clouded, no life to be found anywhere in them. Adam awoke suddenly, crying and screaming. No, please. Maya. Breathe. Live. Don't leave me, please. It took a moment for him to feel her arms around him, holding him tightly, her warm, soft voice calming and sweet. It's okay, baby, I'm here. I love you, you're safe. Adrenaline was pumping through his body, and he collapsed sobbing as Maya held him, knowing he could break down and she wouldn't judge or mock him for doing so. And God, the years of pent-up rage and hurt and terror came flooding out. Maya stroked his head, her lips against his temple, letting him get it all out. Finally, as his sobbing subsided, she wiped the tears away from his face. You needed that, didn't you? He nodded. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that would happen. Was it a nightmare? You've had them a few times since we've been together. Adam was surprised. You noticed? I have. She smiled at him. I've wanted to ask you about them before, but I also didn't want you to feel like. I don't know that I was prying. But, talk to me, darling. There is nothing you can't tell me, my love. Adam hesitated. It was so long ago. But whatever it is still affects you, so out with it. You know all my dark secrets. She half smiled. But I'm serious. You once told me it didn't help to keep it in. We're married now. Tell me. And so Adam told her the horrifying story of his teenage years, the fights, the manipulation, ending with the murder attempt and his mother's suicide. Of course, my father didn't believe me. He blamed me for her death, didn't believe that she had tried to kill me, despite my injuries. He thought I'd struggled to get the knife from her, but even that wasn't good enough. Adam let out a deep breath. Over the years, he began to accept that Mother had serious mental health issues, but still, we never reconciled. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Maya wrapped her arms around him. I can't even imagine. He kissed her. I honestly never knew what love was until I met you. I mean, yes, my friends, Dante especially, gave me love, but I could never imagine that I would let someone get so close to me. And I'm still terrified of losing you. That, I can promise you, will never, ever happen. Whatever life holds for us now, you and I are a team. Maya kissed him fiercely. And I love you. I know now you are the only man I have ever loved. You have taught me what love is. Adam's arms tightened around her, shutting out the rest of the world until dawn broke over the island.
Chapter 15.
Lark peered at Maya from behind the counter. Are you all right, boss? You're very quiet today. Am I? Sorry, just pondering stuff. Sorry. Listen, it's dead today. Why don't we shut for an extended lunch, my treat, and we'll go pick up a tree for the shop? It was the first week of December and Maya felt restless as if she were missing something. Adam's story had unsettled her, but she was careful not to show that around him, wanting to be strong for him. He'd found a therapist in the city and had arranged an appointment for the new year. There was a renewed life in his eyes, and Maya felt as if a strange unknown weight had been lifted from them. If only the weight she was feeling was so easy to figure out. The notion that Zach was alive and hunting her, but how the hell had he known where she was? The only answer was that he'd been watching her the whole time, but that idea made her want to throw up. What kind of sick, twisted mind? No, she told herself. There are easy answers. The hit and run was an accident, the break-in simply a matter of forgetting to lock up after herself, and the hat. Luca was wearing another hat. A different hat. I just remembered it wrong. It helped her to think like that, but a small part of her wondered. If Zach was alive, was there a possibility Luca was too? Stop it. Don't trust to hope. Maya glanced at the clock. It was 5 noon now and the store was empty. She quickly scribbled a sign and stuck it in the window. Come on, Larky. Let's go eat. They had a quick lunch at their favorite sandwich place, then went to find a spruce tree. Hefting it into the back of Maya's car, they then went to find decorations for it. They spent an obscene amount of money, which made Lark quell, but Maya just laughed. It's an investment. We'll use these over and over, you'll see. Back at the store, there was a small queue of people waiting, and Maya apologized to them and offered them all free eggnog or warm spiced apple juice. Soon the bookshop was full of people, some of whom helped decorate the tree as Maya served customers. Finally, she was able to come join them at the tree, and she strung tiny white lights all over it, jokingly wrapping them around Lark too. I'm sure this counts as employee abuse. The younger woman giggled as Maya looped Christmas balls over each of Lark's ears. Someone cleared their throat, and the two women turned to see the creepy man from a few weeks ago, waiting impatiently at the counter. Maya shot Lark a resigned look and went to serve him. If anything, he was freakier still, standing way too close to her as she showed him some new children's books they just had delivered. She felt his breath on her shoulder, his musty scent. Yuck, she thought, have a shower once in a while. It was impossible to figure out how old he was. His hair and beard were speckled with gray, but the too black color of his hair suggested he dyed it. His eyes, darker than dark, were riveted to her, unblinking. Maya felt uncomfortable and moved back to the register, eager to put space between him and herself. She wrapped his books for him and took his money. "Thank you. Have a great holiday season." She expected him to turn silently and stalk out, but he lingered. "I wonder," he started, again pinpointing her with that unsettling stare. "Would you like to have a drink with me?" Maya sighed inwardly but smiled politely. "That's very kind, but," she held up her left hand, "I'm very happily married." He stared at the simple white gold band on her ring finger for the longest time, until Maya put her hand down behind her back. This time he did turn and stalk out without a word. Maya let out a long breath of relief, her shoulders slumping. Lark, having finally disentangled herself from the lights, came over. "Geez, that guy's a real piece of work. Why do I feel like I need a shower?" Maya shuddered theatrically and laughed. "Ah, who cares? Listen, you've gone above and beyond today. Why don't you skip out early?" "Are you sure?" "Of course. Do you need a ride home?" "No, it's fine, I have my bicycle." Lark wound her scarf around her neck. "Thanks, Maya. I'll see you in the morning." It was almost closing time by the time Maya had seen to the last customer, and she quickly put back some books before she closed the store. As she slid the last book onto the shelf, she almost groaned when she heard the door open. Fixing a smile on her face, she went back to the front and stopped. The creep was back. He gave her a smile, or rather, stretched a rictus across his face in an imitation of one. "I don't easily take no for an answer." Maya felt both anger and fear surge through her. What the heck was he thinking? "I'm sorry, but we're closed." She walked to the door and opened it, not backing down for one moment. I heard what you said, sir, but I have already given you my answer. Please leave." He didn't move. Maya grew impatient. "Look, there's no need for this to be unpleasant. If you think you're intimidating me, you're very much mistaken. Now please, this store is closing for the evening, and I want to go home to my husband." They stared at each other for a long moment, neither backing down. Then the door opened a bit more, and a muscular man whom Maya vaguely recognized stepped into the store, his eyes riveted to the creep. "Is there a problem here, Mrs. Harcourt?" Maya tried not to show her surprise, and in that moment she realized the newcomer was one of Adam's security team. She hid a grin. "None, thank you." This gentleman was about to leave. The creep shot a spiteful glance at her, but was clearly not going to take on the young man, whose biceps were thicker than Maya's waist. He left silently, and the security guard closed the door behind him. He smiled at Maya. "Sorry if I stepped on your toes. I know you were handling it, I was just backup." Maya smiled back at him. "No, thank you, really? That could have gotten nasty, and as feminist as I am, I'm not stupid. I would have tried to fight him off, but who knows whether I would have succeeded. Thank you." She realized she was trembling. "Geez. Listen, let's meet properly. I'm assuming you work for Adam?" He held out his hand, and she shook it. She liked his calm, easy manner. "Ash Oliver. I'm on Mr. Harcourt's team, yes, but relatively new. From Washington. Born and bred, ma'am." Maya waved her hand. "God please, it's Maya. Ma'am makes me sound like a grandma." "Well, Ash, thank you. I do appreciate it. I have to be honest, I had no idea Adam had assigned protection to me." She vaguely remembered something about protection, but she and Adam had never discussed it again. "We keep our distance," Ash said now. "The last thing Mr. Harcourt wanted was you to feel watched. But he will want to know about this, sorry." "It's okay, but I'll tell him. We have no secrets. No big secrets." She amended with a grin. "Do you need a ride home?" Maya smiled at him. He really was cute with that dirty blonde hair and hazel eyes. No, I have my car, thank you.
Chapter 16.
At home, she began chopping vegetables for their supper, waiting for Adam to come back from the construction site. When she heard his key in the door, she went to meet him. He grinned at her as he hung his coat on the hook. Hey, beautiful. In reply, Maya wrapped herself around him, pressing her lips to his and kissing him until they were both breathless. Wow, he said, now that's a way to say hello. Next you'll be saying something smells good and honey, I'm home. She grinned at him and he laughed. We're so domesticated. Talking of, where's the kid? Eating her supper. Maya gave him a guilty look. Yeah, I know it's early, but she was driving me crazy. As if on cue, Betty came barreling out of the kitchen to greet Adam, and he swept the dog into his arms. At least I know where I come on the scale, Betty Boo. After Mommy and your food. To be fair, you come after food on my scale too, no don't. She giggled as he lunged for her, tickling her. She escaped his grip and skipped to the kitchen. Go wash up, it's almost ready. When he came back down, clean, in a fresh sweater and jeans, he picked the lid of the saucepan up. Meatballs. He looked hopeful, and she laughed. A man of habits. She pulled herself up onto the counter and studied him. It's a thank you. For what? Maya hid a smile. For giving me cute boy bodyguard. Adam stopped, raising his eyebrows. Ash? The very one. Adam's smile faded. If you met him, then something happened. No biggie. Just an overzealous admirer. I was handling it, but Ash was backup. Nope, tell me everything. So, heaping her word to Ash, she related everything to Adam, whose face was like stone afterward. Do you understand what he could have done to you? I'm aware. And I'm not complaining about you protecting me, although dude, you could have told me. His eyes softened. I promised not to put you in any kind of cage. And this isn't it, Adam. I appreciate it, just next time, tell me in advance. But, she put her hands on his chest, don't think I'm giving you a hard time. Like I said, I appreciated the backup. Over dinner, she could tell Adam was thinking about the creeper. She nudged his knee with her foot. Hey. Stop dwelling. You know how often a woman gets harassed by a man? Weekly. Try daily. Sometimes multiple times a day. Sometimes it's something like standing way too close in a checkout line. Might not seem a big deal, but it's someone taking something from us. Anyway, enough about that. How's the house coming along? He told her the progress on the Harper house. Which reminds me. I got a call today from a company I did some work for in New York. They're holding a Christmas party and wondered if I would attend as a special guest. Adam searched her eyes. What do you think? Are you ready to go back to Manhattan? Maya felt a jolt of shock, then considered. She knew there would possibly be some of her old social circle would be there, more of a certainty, really. Was she ready to go back? Adam took her hand. No pressure, but it might help. You've told me how some of them treated you. Go back with your head held high, Maya, screw 'em. You know what? You're right. She took a deep breath in. Let's do it. Adam leaned over and kissed her. I'll make the arrangements. So, a week before Christmas, Maya and Adam traveled to New York. Adam had booked the penthouse suite of a high-end motel overlooking Central Park, and as they dressed for the party, Maya looked out over the city, over the view she had known for so long. Now, she wondered how she could ever pass up Washington's mountains and oceans for this logjam of a city. Adam noticed her reverie and kissed the back of her neck. You okay? She nodded and smiled at him. Always when I'm with you. Adam slid an appreciative hand down her dark gold dress, which clung to her curves and highlighted her caramel skin. You look sensational. She pressed her body against his. After the party, we're going to keep each other up all night long. You're on, beautiful. In the cab to the party, she held his hand, nerves creeping into her, and Adam seemed to notice, squeezing her fingers to comfort her. "I'm with you," he whispered, leaning in to kiss her, "always." At first, she didn't recognize anyone and began to relax a little, but Maya and Adam were early. She knew that Sakata and Henry would be at the party. She kept in touch with her old friend but hadn't seen her for a couple of years. Still, as the evening wore on, familiar faces appeared, some who she'd known vaguely, others who had been friends to Zack more than her. Few of them approached her, however, choosing to just stare and gossip. Maya's head went up, and she ignored them, especially those who had been friends with her despised ex-husband. She was proud to stand up with Adam, but as the night wore on, she had to take a time out to regroup. She excused herself and headed to the ladies' restroom. Inside, she took a few deep breaths, closing her eyes. Being around these people, especially at this time of the year, was bringing back all kinds of memories, good and bad, but mostly of Zack. When had she started to hate him? Was it really only after he'd taken Luca from her? Or had it started earlier? Looking back, having now entered into a marriage of equals, of fun and of freedom, she shook her head at how naive she had been in her first marriage, how sheltered, how restricted. Maya shook her head now and washed her hands. That life is over, she thought, and it helps no one to dwell. She was leaving the bathroom as the door was pushed open, and she found herself face to face with Tracy Goldingham. Maya gave an audible groan and rolled her eyes. "Tracy, what a displeasure." "Well, if it isn't the grieving widow. Or, seeing as you've managed to capture another rich man in your web, should I say, Black Widow." "Hilarious," Maya shot back. "Listen, I read your sob story. You do realize that Zack being dead and all, that you lost your chance with him, right? Unless you're up for a murderous corpse." She didn't care that she was being a skank. Tracy deserved every bit of vitriol Maya could send her. She saw something flicker in Tracy's eyes then, and a thrill of shock went through her. It wasn't annoyance or hurt, it was triumph. Was Tracy enjoying Maya fighting back for once, or was it something else? Something that Tracy knew and Maya didn't? Like Zack being alive. Maya opened her mouth to say something, but they were interrupted by a banshee cry of joy, and Sakata bore down on them, practically shoving Tracy out of the way and throwing her arms around Maya's neck. "Maya Gahana, it's been too damn long." Sakata sounded like she was about to burst into tears, and Maya hugged her friend back tightly as she saw Tracy disappear. Damn it. But she couldn't stay annoyed, because just being with Sakata was heavenly. Sakata dragged her back to the party. "Introduce me to your gorgeous man." Maya found Adam already chatting with Henry, and she introduced her friend to her new husband. Sakata sized him up blatantly for a long moment, then turned with a serious face to Maya. "Now he, Ms. Gahana, is a serious upgrade." They all burst out laughing as Sakata grinned, her gorgeous eyes crinkling at the sides. She and Adam flirted playfully as Maya and Henry chuckled, listening to their back and forth. Maya saw Tracy again as she and Adam were leaving with Sakata and Henry, and the other woman smirked at her. Henry was talking, so Maya felt she couldn't interrupt to go over and talk to Tracy about what she knew, but it was in the back of her mind for the rest of the evening.
Chapter 17.
They were staying in New York for a few more days before going back to Bainbridge Island, and tomorrow, Maya would spend a long, leisurely lunch with Sakata before Christmas shopping with her old friend. Adam had business meetings all day, and Maya thought about how few times she had seen him dress for business rather than in his jeans and t-shirt to work on the Harper House himself. She was smiling to herself as they rode the elevator back to their penthouse, and Adam asked her what she was thinking. "Just, I get to see CEO Harcourt at work." Adam chuckled. "Which do you prefer? CEO or construction dude?" "I prefer," and she pressed her body against his, "naked Harcourt to all other Harcourts." Flirt. But he kissed her, his tongue exploring her mouth as his fingers tangled in her long hair. "Mrs. Harcourt, when we get to our room." The elevator dinged and stopped at their floor then, making them both laugh at the irony. "As I was saying, now that we're in our room and all alone." He led her by the hand into the dark living room with the wall-to-ceiling windows, but stopped her as she stepped towards the bedroom. Ava. Maya smiled a little confused. Baby. I want you to stand in the middle of the room. Do you trust me? With my life, she said softly, and he chuckled, pulling his necktie from around his neck and winding it around her eyes. Kinky. Things are about to get really kinky, Miss Kahana. Mrs. Harcourt, she shot back and laughed. That's my name and I'm proud of it. If there was a word stronger than love, I would say it to you, Maya, but there are no words for how I feel for you. I'll never want more than this, us, and maybe one day children of our own. For me, the day cannot come soon enough. Maya kissed with a furious passion. I've been yearning for a child with you. A child that will know her parents love each other and their children without condition, without restriction. You don't think it's too soon? She shook her head. Our child will have something Luca didn't have, a father who would never ever hurt her. A father she can trust to be her champion, her protector, her teacher. Unconsciously, she had begun to use the female pronouns, she realized. And a mother who loves unconditionally. Who would walk into traffic for her. Adam stroked her hair behind her ear. Luca did have that mother. And I am honored that you would bear my child with as much love as you had for her. Maya kissed him again. Take me to bed, Adam. All I want right here, right now, is you. Always. Always, he agreed.
Chapter 18.
Well, girl, I have to say, you do look radiant and thank God for it. Sakata smiled at her friend as they sat in the restaurant the next day. They were enjoying a leisurely lunch, chatting and catching up. That man is doing you good. Maya grinned. He is, Zach, he really is, and it's not just Adam, but my whole life out there. It suits me, you know. I can see that. A bookstore owner, a dog, a gorgeous man, all out in the beauty of Washington State. Makes me feel quite envious. Maya chuckled. You'd give up Fifth Avenue for that? Sakata reeled back in mock horror. Wash your mouth out, Gahana. She laughed. But we're very different, Maya, that's why I love you. I never said this but before with Zachary in the world we live. I didn't fit. I know that now, don't worry. Sakata's eyes were soft. But I am forever thankful you were in it, Maya, never think that. It's just I always felt you were, she cast around for the right word. Caged. Funny, Adam said the same thing. I think you're right. There was a small pause in conversation, then Sakata chewed her lip. Do you ever think about him? Zach? Sakata nodded and Maya shrugged. Only to curse him, Zach. Every time I think of Luca, I hate him more. I think of how scared she must have been, how confused, and it makes me so angry. Maya was aware her voice was rising and she took a deep breath in. Sorry. Listen, on that subject, before I saw you last night, I had a strange moment with the molding ham. Sakata snorted with laughter at the nickname. She's been playing the grieving best friend for 5 years. It's getting a little old. She's a laughingstock. Did you see the article? Those Holy Mother bless photos? Nauseous. And Photoshopped to hell, yes. What was the strange moment? Maya told Sakata about the strange reaction Tracy had had to Maya asking her if she wanted to sleep with a corpse. There was something in her eyes, like she was laughing at me for missing something so obvious. Like what? Maya hesitated, then looked her friend directly in the eye. Like Zach might be alive. Sakata's eyebrows shot up. That's crazy. Is it though? After all this time, there's still no body, no actual evidence he's dead. And something happened back in Washington. What? Maya told her about the hat they'd found in the attic of their house. The more I think about it, the more I am certain that Luca was wearing it when she disappeared. Sakata was silent, then put her hand over Maya's. Oh, darling. The sympathy in her voice made Maya flush. You think I'm crazy? Of course not. But Maya, you have this new, incredible life. You're married to the love of your life. Darling, don't look back. Don't ponder on things you will never get the answers to. Zach's gone and so sweetheart is Luca. I'm so sorry, but for your own sake, don't look back. Maya felt a sting, but she nodded. She knew Sakata was right, but she had almost wanted her friend to acknowledge there was something weird about the two situations. Later, when she and Sakata had said goodbye, an emotional one in which they promised to stay in touch more regularly, Maya called Adam but got his voicemail. She decided to go Christmas shopping on her own, avoiding all the stores she used to go to with Luca or Zach. That wasn't her life anymore. She told Ash, who was chauffeuring her everywhere on Adam's request, that she wanted some time alone, and though he wasn't happy about it, he'd been instructed to follow her orders by Adam. Please, though, take the panic button. Just in case. Maya tried not to roll her eyes. Fine. Anyone would think I'm the first lady, she thought. She still wasn't comfortable with the protection Adam had set up, but this was the compromise. When she wanted to be alone, she was. She'd be fine in the stores with the amount of people around a few days before Christmas. Maya had to admit, she was so looking forward to her first holidays with Adam. This time last year, I was miserable and alone. Now I have the best husband, a home, real friends, and business I love. Her spirits lifted, and she spent the afternoon happily shopping for gifts. Adam called her just before 5 p.m. Where are you now? She told him. I'll come meet you. There's a great Korean place down the block from there. What do you think? Yum. Now I'm starving. Hurry, she laughed as he chuckled and told her the name of the restaurant. I'll meet you there. Ash around? Maya almost laughed at the studied casual way he asked. Solo outing, Chewy. Adam both sighed and laughed. Fine. Pain in my ass. Maya grinned. Live with it. See you in a few. Adam was waiting outside the restaurant when she found it, and he kissed her hello, not caring at the people staring at them. Hello, beautiful. Good evening, handsome. She nuzzled her nose against his. How was business? Dull. Very dull. He grinned. But let's go in. I'm famished and I need food and you. In that order? At the same time. She wiggled her eyebrows at him. Kinky. He grinned and took her hand. In the restaurant, they sat at a small table in the window and chatted about their days. Adam ran a hand through his dark curls. Gosh, I'm glad we don't live here, baby. Too many people. I'll drink to that. I can't wait to go home, to be honest. I want our little house, our dog, our little piece of heaven. Adam touched her cheek. Hey, we can change the flights, you know. We could go tonight. Maya smiled. That sounds wonderful, except. He looked surprised given what she'd just said. Maya giggled and leaned closer, lowering her voice. Sakata told me about this club. An exclusive club. She held his gaze and realization dawned in his eyes. Really? There's a special place inside the club. A room. A glass cubicle where people, you know. You can choose whether it's private or it has this special glass. You just flick a switch and if you want, everyone else can watch you. Her face was burning, but she could see that her words were turning him on. You can wear eye masks if you want to hide your identity, but otherwise. She put a hand to her burning face. I just thought, with you, gosh, it would be so freaking exciting. Have I shocked you? Where did we meet? The second time? Adam smiled, but his eyes were intense. Of course you haven't shocked me, you've delighted me. So, yes. Try to stop me, beautiful. So engrossed in their planning and their love, they didn't see the man watching them from a table in the back. His eyes were riveted to Maya's face, watching as the new husband stroked it tenderly. How would he feel when she was gone? By the look in his eyes, he would be destroyed. Good. Harcourt should never have touched what didn't belong to him. And Maya. Damn skank. She would die slowly, he decided, and while she was dying, he would tell her the one thing that would make her death even more hopeless, even more pointless. He smiled to himself. Not long now. Enjoy your lover while you can, Maya. Gosh, but she was so beautiful. Those gorgeous almond-shaped eyes with the thick dark lashes, the flush on her honey skin, that sweet smile. His groin tightened, and he remembered the feel of her skin, the flesh on her inner thigh. It seemed impossible to him that he would never feel that again, but this was the path he had chosen. He left money for his meal on the table and left, passing by Maya and her husband. He couldn't help but brush his fingers against her neck, and had the satisfaction of feeling her stiffen as he walked away. Outside it had started to snow. He reached in his pocket and pulled out his cell phone. He pressed the number for home and heard the ancient machine pick up. It's me. I'll be home soon, and we'll eat supper together. Remember the rules. No lights on in the house until I get home. Remember. I don't want to have to punish you again. We both know what that would mean, don't we? He ended the call and headed for the subway, disappearing into the evening throng of people easily. That was his gift, after all. Disappearing.
Chapter 19.
Maya's courage only started to fail as they walked into the club at almost midnight. Adam squeezed her hand. You want to go, just say. She shook her head. I want to do this. I told you I wanted to try everything with you, and God, I really, really want to do this. He stopped before they reached the coat check and drew out 2 eye masks. Yes? Maya nodded, somewhat relieved. Adam tied the white mask around her eyes, and then she returned the favor. Should we use false names? You can be anyone you want to be. Just yours? Always yours? Then we don't need fake names. He led her through the club. The interior was exposed brick with alcoves where couples lounged on chaise lounges, some making love in pairs or in 3s or 4s. Beautiful waitstaff drifted around ethereally, barely clothed, and silently serving drinks, not making eye contact. The whole place had an otherworldly atmosphere about it. It could be a million miles away from the Manhattan streets above it. There was something Greco-Roman about the whole place. Flowering plants dripped from the brick walls, low lighting, and sensual music. Some couples, mixed and same gender, were dancing, and for a few minutes Adam slipped his arms around her waist and they swayed to the music. Maya was grateful. It relaxed her, and when Adam led her to the glass cubicle in the middle of the club, she followed him with a thrill of excitement running through her. Inside, she was surprised at how clean and inviting the place was. The glass was switched to one way, so they had privacy for now. There was a bed, a small queen size with fresh sheets, and Adam swept her onto it. Let's get relaxed first. He unzipped her dress, and she stepped out of it. She'd bought new lingerie, which looked good against her dusky skin, and by the appreciation in Adam's eyes, he thought so too. He ran a finger down the silky strap and smiled at her. Beautiful, but they're going on the floor because what's underneath is the real prize. Maya felt absurdly flattered, and when he drew her panties down her legs so gently, she felt even more beautiful when he looked up at her. Adam stood and freed her hair from the messy bun at the nape of her neck, letting it fall down her back. You are the most beautiful creature on this earth, he whispered, his lips an inch from hers, and I still can't believe you're mine. Always, she said and pressed her lips to his. Adam chuckled and tumbled her to the bed, and they wrestled around playfully before he took her face in his hands and studied her. I almost don't want to share you, but keeping all this amativeness to myself is such a selfish thing to do. Only you get to touch me, my love. Only you. Maya giggled as he swept her up into his arms and carried her to the glass. For a moment, they just looked out at the people outside. No one was looking at the cubicle, and Maya was a little disappointed, and said so. Adam grinned. You little exhibitionist. That's because they have no idea we're in here. When we decide, if we decide, to switch the glass to two-way, then the lights in the club go out and they can see us. Maya pressed her body against the glass and looked back at him over her shoulder. Then let's give them a show. 2 hours later, they were on a private flight back to Seattle. You have dirty in your eyes, Lark said accusingly as Maya greeted her at the bookstore the next morning. Please tell me you and Adam didn't just do it in the back room again. Maya grinned. For the record, that was just the one time and no. We just had a great time in New York. Bah. Lark said, looking a little grumpy. At least let me live vicariously through you. That's weird, Lark. But Maya laughed. Lark's record with boyfriends lately was showing signs of bad luck. Or I just have a broken picker, Lark said now. Hey, by the way, you left your cell phone here. The pink one. I think I heard it buzz the other day, which is how I found it. I don't know why you still have it, it's ancient. Maya's smile faltered a little. I know. It was the phone I had when Luca went missing. You'd think a 5-year-old wouldn't remember a number by heart, but she did. I have it still, just in case. Lark's expression softened. Of course, sorry. No biggie. You heard it buzz. Maya walked into the office and picked it up, noticing it needed charging. She plugged the lead into the electric outlet and saw the charging symbol appear, along with a missed call notification from an unknown number. Probably spam, she said, not hiding her disappointment. I can't believe I forgot to take it with me. Lark put a hand on her shoulder. Maybe it just means you're healing. Maya smiled at her young friend. Maybe it does. I'm just not ready to give it up, yet. She chewed her lip. Tomorrow is the 5-year anniversary. Maybe after Christmas. Lark rubbed her shoulder again and left her alone. Maya stared at the phone, willing it to ring. Oh, where are you, my darling nugget? I would give anything to find you. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing back the tears. Don't do this. You have everything to go on for Adam. She smiled then. She loved him with all her heart, and she couldn't wait for them to have children. She blinked and heard Lark's voice, raised and irritated. That was unlike her chilled-out young friend. She heard Lark cry out and darted out to see her young clerk clutching her face and the retreating figure of a man running from the shop. He hit me. That damn jerk hit me. Are you okay? I'm fine. Maya. But Maya was out of the shop, running after the man, incensed. She saw him turn into an alley behind a row of stores and followed him. She was raging now, and as she got closer, she recognized him. It was the creep who had hit on her. He turned a corner, and Maya followed him. Mistake. He was waiting for her. As she rounded the corner, he grabbed her, and too late, Maya realized she'd been set up for this. Her attacker threw her to the ground and was on top of her, punching her hard in the stomach. Maya, winded, curled up into a ball, shielding her head as he rained punches down on her. Where the hell was Ash? Maya wasn't a feminist for nothing though, and when her assailant paused, she sprang into action, sliding around on the icy ground and taking out his knees. He buckled, slipping and crashing to the ground. Maya scrambled to her feet. Maya. Finally, she heard Ash screaming her name. Here, oh. Her attacker's right fist connected with her temple and she dropped, dazed as he took off. Maya's head spun as Ash reached her and he picked her up. Are you okay? She nodded, closing her eyes, trying to quell the dizziness. He attacked Lark. I know, I'm so sorry. He knocked me out before. I never saw him coming. Now she saw Ash's head was bleeding over his left eye. God, Ash, we need to get you to a doctor. But Ash insisted on taking her back to the shop first. Then as Lark called the police and medics, Maya tended to Ash's bleeding head. I think you need stitches. Maya, really, I'm okay. I'm more concerned about you. Maya shook her head. Really, I'm good. I'll just be sporting a few nice bruises for the festive season. She sighed. And I suppose I can't ask you not to tell Adam? Already on his way, sorry. We have a panic button direct to him. Well, I suppose you're just doing your job. Adam arrived just as the police did, and Maya had to hide a grin as he barked questions at all of them, stepping on the police officer's own questions. Eventually, the officer had to interrupt. Sir, please. If we're to find this man. Adam shut up then, but Maya could see the stress in his face, the worry. He kept glancing at her as if she would break down, but she took his hand, squeezing it. Eventually, he couldn't stay silent anymore. The fact he came back for her, that he set this up, so she would be alone, unprotected. Ash flushed, and Maya felt sorry for him. Adam saw the other man flinch and put a hand on his shoulder. I'm not blaming you, Ash. I just want a discussion on the motive. God, he isn't just some creep, is he? He wanted to hurt Maya. We're dealing with an obsessive. He and Maya shared a long glance, and she could see he was wondering the same thing as he was. Did you recognize anything? Anything about him, ma'am? The police officer had seen that look. Maya shook her head. I don't know. What does that mean? Maya felt desperate. The only person who might want to hurt me, he was much larger than this man. This man is skinny in the extreme, the eyes are the wrong color. But as she said it, a certainty settled in her heart and she knew, or rather, she finally acknowledged it to herself. But yes, it could be. Adam's face was pale and he closed his eyes. The officer looked between them. Who? Maya looked at him. My ex-husband. Zachary Konta, she said in a dead voice, then turned and threw up.
Chapter 20.
Maya watched as Adam checked every door and window in the house, as she sat with Betty cuddled up on the couch. When Adam had finished his recognizance, he came down and sat next to her, his arm around her shoulders. So. They looked at each other. He wants to kill me. Maya said it, but there was no fear in her voice, just resignation. He won't get near you. Adam's voice was crackling with anger. Look, the police told me they were contacting New York. They're reopening the case. He killed her. He killed my daughter. Now he wants me dead. I don't get it, why now? Why not 5 years ago? Because I was still his 5 years ago. Because I hadn't fallen in love with another man. I'll bet you any amount of money in the world that he's been watching me this whole time, and he could hardly do that running across the country after me. She put her head in her hands. It's over. Luca's dead. She began to cry softly, and Adam wrapped his arms around her and let her cry herself out. Betty snuffled and licked the salty tears away. But it wasn't the hysteria she thought she would suffer when she finally said the words aloud. Just pure sorrow. Luca. I'm so sorry, baby. They sat in silence for what seemed an age, but then Adam looked up. Unless he had help. Maya wiped her face on her sleeve. Help? You said he couldn't follow you here unless he had help. What about that woman, the woman in New York? The Moldingham? You said she reacted in a strange way when you said Zach was dead. Maya stared at him. She did. She thought about T some more. That skank. That damn skank. Now she was angry, up and pacing. I will wring her skinny neck. Adam calmed her. I'm calling the police. They'll need to talk to her. Maya. Are you listening? Maya's eyes were wild. You have to take me back there, Adam, tonight. We have to go back to New York. No. She stopped. What? I said no. Adam took a deep breath and held her shoulders. Sweetheart, we do this right. We do this right so that if that woman knows anything, she'll have to tell it to the police. Maya wasn't happy with that. She won't tell them shit, she raged, jerking away from him. The only thing that'll get her to talk is my hands around her neck. That's the thing that will guarantee her silence, Maya. Maya knew she was right, but she was too angry to back down. You promised me you would always be there for me, and what I need right now, more than anything, is for you to let me do this my way. By getting arrested for murder? Because I guarantee you, they won't look generously on you if you end Tracy Golding's life. And if Luca is still out there somewhere. Maya walked out of the room and went upstairs before he could finish. She slammed into their bedroom and lay on the bed, trying to calm herself. She knew she was acting like a child, but she was too mad. She was still awake when Adam came and laid down beside her, but by then she had calmed down. "I'm sorry. I know you're right." Adam stroked her face. "Darling, there is not one thing in this world that I want more than Luca back in your arms. But we have to do things right. Kanta needs to be in jail, and so does Tracy if she has been helping. But this is all conjecture at this point. Until we know your attacker was Kanta for sure." "I know." She sighed. "I'm sorry I lost my temper." He smiled at her. "No problem, honey. Kind of hot to see you." Maya chuckled softly. "What would I do without you, Adam?" "You'll never have to find out, baby." They made love and fell asleep. It was almost 3 a.m. when Maya woke, a strange noise from downstairs alerting her. She sat up, listening hard. Not an intruder, more like a cell phone. But it wasn't the ringtone of her day-to-day phone. She scrambled out of bed and down the stairs, not caring if she woke Adam or Betty as she clambered to reach the small pink phone before the ringing stopped. She grabbed it, pressed accept and said hello, breathless and shaking, and when she heard the voice on the other end of the phone, her knees buckled and she dropped to the ground. "Mommy."
Chapter 21.
Maya held Adam's hand so tightly it was beginning to go numb. As the helicopter flew over Washington state towards Portland, Adam tried to keep his wife calm, but he knew it was impossible. In the 48 hours since Maya had received that phone call she had been waiting for every day for the past 5 years, Maya had been wired and almost hysterical every moment. Luca. Luca was alive and somewhere on the West Coast. That was all she could tell her mother between sobs, and when they had called the police, the FBI had gotten involved. They hauled in Tracy Goldingham in New York, who rolled almost immediately at the threat of prosecution. It was all true. Zach Kanta had taken Luca and for 5 years lived off the grid, keeping tabs on Maya the whole time. When she had moved to Washington state, he had moved Luca to Portland so he could watch Maya in her new life. Luca told the police that Zach told her Maya was dead, and it wasn't until a photograph of Maya and Adam together in New York was printed in a paper Zach accidentally left behind that Luca knew the truth. Zach had kept Luca locked up for 5 years in the basement of the houses he rented. He'd fed her well, given her books to learn from and a television set, but otherwise, she hadn't seen daylight. The police liaison told Maya and Adam not to expect too much. "Your daughter has spent some of her more formative years locked away from the world. She's a different little girl from the one you remember, but don't let that show. She's gone through so much." Maya had cried long and hard, both from relief and joy, but also from rage that Zach had done this to her darling girl. Adam had calmed her, but now as they flew to the hospital in Portland where Luca was being treated, Maya felt both sick and afraid. What if Luca rejected her? What if she couldn't be the best mother for her damaged daughter? "Darling, stop beating yourself up. Just don't expect miracles. We have all the time in the world to rebuild Luca's life for her." But Maya couldn't wait to hold her girl in her arms. She could hardly believe any of this was happening. It was Christmas Day, and snow covered the ground as they flew overhead. When Portland came into view and the helipad on the roof got closer, Maya felt her heart began to thump harder and harder. In a few moments, they were being hurried through the hospital corridors. She's here, she's here." Maya felt breathless with anticipation. "The doctor would like to speak to you before you see Luca," the liaison said, and Maya nodded, although every cell in her body was screaming to let them see her daughter right now. The doctor smiled kindly at her. "I realize you must be anxious to see Luca, but I just wanted to prepare you. The last time you saw her, she was a 5-year-old child. Now she's 10, a preteen, but her experiences are not that of normal children. She's older than her years and very guarded. She's very thin, a result, we think, from anxiety rather than from being denied food. She's very smart and can see through any kind of charade. So be honest with her. She prefers that. She doesn't like to be touched." Maya choked back tears then. Did he hurt or?" "No. From what we can surmise, there was no physical abuse, but neither was there affection. What was her father like to her when you were together? Very affectionate, or at least he gave the impression of it. Maya gave a humorless laugh. Everything was an act with Zach, it seemed. Doctor, please, I know you're telling me this for all our sakes, but I need to see my daughter. Of course. He shot a glance at Adam. Mr. Harcourt. Adam nodded. Just Maya for now. There's plenty of time for me to meet Luca. Let's not overwhelm her. He kissed Maya's temple, and she smiled at him gratefully, leaning into his embrace. I love you, he whispered, and she mouthed it back at him. She almost wished she could hold Adam's hand as the doctor led her towards Luca's room. The fear in her was only calmed by the knowledge that she was only a few steps away, 5 steps, 3, 2. The doctor opened the door, and Maya stepped into the room, her eyes immediately going to the child sitting on the bed. The girl stared back at her. Luca was taller obviously, her limbs willowy, her dusky skin sallow, her eyes watchful and wary. But to Maya, she had never seen a more beautiful sight. She found her voice eventually as she stepped, trembling, towards Luca. Hello, Nugget, oh Luca, Luca. She began to sob as she held her arms out to her daughter, and slowly the girl uncurled herself and moved silently and gently into her mother's arms. Mommy? Is it really you? Maya half laughed, half cried. It is, my darling. Oh, Luca. I'm so sorry, I've missed you so much. Luca looked up at her, and Maya could see the conflict in her eyes. Daddy told me you died. Her little voice cracked. He said you'd been killed by a bad man, and that we could never go home, because the bad man would come and kill us too. Maya's arms tightened around her daughter. She could feel Luca's spine through her sweater, and she silently cursed Zach. Luca. Daddy is a very sick man. In his brain, do you understand? Luca nodded, and Maya felt her little arms tentatively wrapped around her waist. Mommy? Yes, my love? Who is that man? I saw a picture of you. I knew you weren't dead then, and that's why I stole Daddy's phone to call you. Maya sat Luca back on the bed and knelt in front of her so Luca could see her face, know she was speaking the truth. That's Adam, sweetheart. He's my husband. He's very much looking forward to meeting you. He wants to take care of you and me. Is he nice? The wariness was back in Luca's eyes, and Maya stroked her little cheek. He is, darling. All he has in his heart is love. He already loves you. How? Maya smiled. Because he loves me, and he knows that without you, I can't be happy. Plus, she tickled Luca's nose lightly because no one who knows you couldn't love you. Luca looked away from her. Mommy. Maya felt a strange pang. Zachary, you jerk. Nugget. She sighed. Listen, what do you want? Anything, and I mean anything. What would make you feel better? Luca bit her lip. I don't know, Mommy. She attempted a half smile, her first, and Maya's heart burst with love for this girl. Just Mommy. All I want is you. Maya hugged her daughter to her. Darling, I promise you, I will never ever let you be taken from me again, okay? They held each other for the longest time. Mommy? Yes, baby? Where's Daddy? Maya stroked her daughter's silky hair, then buried her face in it, breathing in her scent. She smelled exactly like Maya remembered, a powdery softness. We don't know, darling. The police are looking for him. What about that lady? Which lady, Nugget? The horrible blonde lady. Maya tried not to grimace. Tracy. Luca nodded. Daddy and her. I heard them talking about getting rid of me. Maya couldn't help the gasp of pure horror then, and tears began to flood down her cheeks. She made Luca look at her. Listen to me. Daddy and Tracy will be in prison soon for what they did to you. No one will ever hurt you again, do you hear me? Ever. She took a deep breath in. Darling. I live on an island, a very pretty island with Adam, and we have a lovely house on a quiet street. We have a dog called Betty. Luca's eyes lit up and Maya smiled. Do you want to see a photograph? Luca nodded, and Maya got her phone out and showed her a photograph of Betty. Then she showed her a short video of the dog playing, and Luca laughed as she saw Betty running to the camera and licking the lens. That laugh made Maya's heart soar, and she wondered how long it had been since Luca was happy. Darling, would you like to come home with us? We have a room for you, but because it's all been so quick, we haven't been able to decorate it for you. So when you come, we can go pick up some stuff for it together, and you can choose anything you want. Luca touched the photo of Betty. Can she sleep on my bed with me? Maya smiled down at her. Of course she can. I don't think anyone could even try to stop her. Betty is a fluffy ball of love, you'll see. She'll adore you right away, be your best friend. There was a knock at the door, and the doctor put his head in. Everything okay? Maya nodded, but felt Luca move closer to her. She's scared he'll take me away from her. Doctor, how long do you think Luca will have to stay here? The doctor looked at Luca, hesitating, but Maya nodded. Anything we discuss should be in front of Luca from now on. She has final say in these decisions. She looked down at her daughter. I told you, Nugget, you are in charge now. No one is going to stop from doing anything. Well, the doctor said, I would prefer Luca to stay a couple more days just to get her immunity up. We can arrange for you to stay with her, Mrs. Harcourt. That's no problem. Maya looked at Luca, who visibly relaxed, and realized just how terrified her daughter was that she would leave her again. That would be perfect, but if Luca wants to come home, then I don't see a problem. In a couple of days, the doctor said again, but with a smile. He looked at Luca, who nodded. Okay. She looked at Maya. Can I meet Adam? Maya's heart pounded with love for her daughter. Of course you can, he can't wait to meet you. Are you sure? Luca nodded, her eyes full of curiosity. I'll ask Mr. Harcourt to step in, the doctor said, and Maya thanked him. While they were waiting, Maya smoothed Luca's hair away from her chin. You grew up, Nugget. Luca's eyes were sad. I wish it had never happened. Oh, sweetheart, so do I would do anything to go back to that day. I wouldn't let you out of my sight. Another knock and Adam stepped slowly into the room. His smile was soft as he saw them. Hey, you two. Maya held her hand out to him and he approached. Maya could see he was nervous. He crouched down Luca's height. Hello, Luca, it's so good to meet you at last. Your mommy has been telling me all about you. She thinks about you every day. Luca nodded, studying Adam, sizing him up. For a moment there was silence, then Luca reached out and touched Adam's beard. Soft, she said, curious. She hopped off the bed to get closer to him. Maya held her breath, but then Luca reached her arms up. She wanted Adam to pick her up. Maya's heart, already wrecked, soared as Adam grinned and picked Luca up. Hey kiddo, he said with a smile, and Maya's tears came again as Luca smiled at him. Did your mommy tell you we have a room for you? It has 2 huge windows and a reading nook, and it's very near to the beach. We take Betty to the beach for her runs. Maya added, stroking Luca's hair. You'll love it, darling. Luca nodded and reached for Maya again. Adam handed her over, smiling at them both. We'll celebrate a proper Christmas when we get home, my loves. Later, when Luca had fallen asleep in Maya's arms, Adam excused himself and went to call his security team. Make sure the house and perimeter are secure. We're bringing Maya's daughter home soon, and I don't want a hint of insecurity for them. Understand? Yes, sir. Of course. After that, he went to find the FBI liaison. Any news on the search for Kanta? The agent shook his head. Nothing. He's gone to ground. Luca told us she was alone in the house for 3 days before we found her. He abandoned her. Father of the year, huh? Adam's anger was visible to everyone. Give me 5 minutes in a room with that guy. I hear ya. I have 3 of my own. The thought of just leaving them. Man. The agent shook his head again in disgust. This guy is scum. Adam sat down next to him. What worries me is he'll come after Maya. He's already attacked her twice. Now that she has Luca back and she's happy, he'll be psychotic in trying to get to her. We have the hospital covered, believe me. No one is going to touch her, either of them, here. There's a nationwide alert out for him with the new description you gave us too. And the accomplice is singing like a bird, giving every bolt hole she knows of. Adam wasn't convinced. He's got unlimited funds and clearly the ability to disguise himself. What if he's never found? We'll find him. The agent sounded confident, but then he looked at Adam and sighed. Look, you can't live your life under threat. You have the means to secure yourselves, so do that, and man, enjoy having your family together. Adam was touched that the agent considered them a family, and as he walked back to the room, he wondered again at how much his life had changed in such a short time, and how he'd gone from the single bachelor, from a broken family to this happy little one. He wasn't a fool. He knew it would take time to build a relationship with Luca, to see how his and Maya's life would change now they had a child, but God excited him. He went back to the room, saw Maya laying down now with Luca, and he climbed onto the bed next to his wife and put an arm around them both. Maya turned her head and smiled at him. I love you, she whispered. Everything I could ever want is right here, right now. Adam kissed her. I feel the same way. He nodded at the sleeping child. Does it feel strange to have her in your arms again? Maya shook her head. It's just like I remembered, except she's a little taller. She feels the same, she smells the same. My baby girl. Her eyes shone. She likes you. And I like her. She's your image, Maya. Smart too. There's no bull you-know-whatting her. Maya stroked Luca's hair. We are going to be the happiest family. I swear we are. I know, he said and kissed her again. 2 days later, they took Luca back to Bainbridge Island and began their new life as a family.
Chapter 22.
December turned to January, January to February, and soon spring was settling over the state, and new growth began to flourish. Luca thrived with Maya and Adam to help her. It wasn't easy. There were nights when she would wake up screaming, and Maya would run in to calm her hysterical daughter. Many nights, she would have to sleep with her daughter to keep her from crying. Through it all, Adam was the calming force for them, and he and Luca slowly got to know each other. Adam talked to her like an adult, respecting her experience and her pain, never overstepping, but soon Luca was learning to trust him as Maya did. The day Luca went unbidden to hug Adam, Maya thought she might cry with happiness. She knew Adam was delighted and touched. All three of them decorated Luca's room as she wanted, endless bookshelves, a permanent tablecloth fort at one end, a book nook at the other. As predicted, Luca and Betty fell in love immediately, and they went everywhere together. Having missed 5 years of schooling, Maya hired a tutor for Luca to come to the house, but the tutor soon told them that Luca, if anything, was ahead of her peer group. Emery and Dante brought Nella to meet Luca, and the two girls, so alike in temperament and hobbies, bonded immediately. During the summer months, with Nella's help, Luca became more confident and outgoing, and by September, Luca was asking to attend the same school as Nella. It had taken Maya a lot of courage to allow it, as well as Adam's and Emery's persuasion. Maya, believe me, I'm all about school security given what happened to me. Emery had survived a school massacre and had saved the life of some students. Which is why when we placed Nella, we made sure they had state-of-the-art security. Plus, Adam will have people outside the school at all times, I'm sure. Maya still didn't seem sure. It sounds like a prison. Just until they find Kanta, Adam assured her, but they all knew that was looking more and more unlikely. Almost a year after Luca was recovered, Zachary Kanta had disappeared off the face of the earth. Tracy Goldingham had been indicted on child abduction and other charges and was awaiting trial in New York City, much to Maya's satisfaction. Sakata and Henry had visited for 2 weeks in the summer, and to Maya's delight, Luca had remembered them, especially Sakata, and didn't associate them with her father. Luca never mentioned Zach. She'd talked to a therapist alone, at her own insistence. Maya asked her why she didn't want her to hear what she had to say, and Luca, showing maturity, had told her she didn't want Maya to hear the worst of it. "I know you have nightmares too, Mommy." Maya's heart ached for the childhood that had been taken from her daughter. She didn't show it in front of her, but when she and Adam were alone, she would cry for those years and the innocence that was lost. Luca's 11th birthday was a special day. Falling on October 13th, she had told Maya that she didn't want a party, just a day with her family. "Mom, can it just be you, me and Pa?" Maya looked at her in shock, but Luca was looking at Adam, who looked as taken aback as Maya. Maya and Adam exchanged a look. "Sweetheart." "Pa." Luca went to Adam, and she smiled shyly. "Pa." She said it simply, and Maya could see the emotion in Adam's face as he hugged her. "Of course it can, sweet thing." His voice sounded choked, and he cleared his throat, embarrassed but delighted. "Now, what can we get you for a present?" Luca smiled, and again Maya thought how old she looked. "I only want one thing." "Name it." "I want a new name. I want to be Luca Harcourt, like Mommy. I've been practicing saying it, and it fits me now." She looked at Maya uncertainly, but Maya's eyes were full of tears and she smiled. "It does." Adam made Luca look at him. "Darling Lou, you know that more than anything, I wish you were my biological daughter, don't you? As far as I am concerned, you are my daughter. I love you so much, so much, and it's an honor you want my name." Of course, of course." Later, when Maya went to bed and found Adam in their bedroom, gazing out of the window, she went to him and found his cheeks wet with tears. Hey, what's this?" Adam laughed, shaking his head. "I never thought this would be possible for me. This. A family. I thought I was too messed up, you know?" Maya drew him into her arms. "You survived the worst that could happen to a child. You and Lulu have so much more in common than you think. I've seen the way you and she have become best friends over the past few months, and it's because you, out of both of us, lived that horror. The breakdown of parental trust. You get her in a way I never could, and I'm so grateful I can't tell you. Not that I would wish either childhood on you both, but they did happen, and now, you've helped her to heal, baby." "She's helped me." Adam kissed Maya and cradled her face in his hands, his eyes intense on hers. "Loving you healed me in so many ways, Maya Gahana." "Harcourt," she said and laughed. "We'll all have the same name now." "Can you believe she asked for it?" Maya laughed. "I can. Actually, I can. She loves you, Adam." "Pa." "Wow. Pa." Maya smiled and took his hand. "Come on, Pa. Let's go to bed and do Ma and Pa things. Maybe we'll make a little sibling for our girl." They'd been trying to get pregnant for a few months, well, Maya had come off birth control anyway, and now as they made love slowly, they knew that if and when it happened, their family would feel ever more complete. 2 months later, as Christmas approached, Maya was with Lark in the bookstore as Adam, Luca, Emery and Nella shopped for gifts for Maya in the city. Maya waited until there was a lull in customers, then went back to the small bathroom in the back room. She snagged her purse and took it with her, digging into it to find the pregnancy test she had bought earlier. She tried not to get her hopes up as she took the test and waited the few minutes to see the result, but something in her was changing, she knew that. She had felt it, a strange sensation that she might be pregnant, for the last week. Her period was late now, and this morning, she had ducked into the pharmacy before coming to the store. She sat impatiently, willing herself not to look before it was time. She went out into the back room, washing her hands in the sink, and then she grabbed the trash bag to take it out, hoping it would distract her long enough. She opened the back door and walked down the alley to the refuse bins, throwing the trash bag in. Maya turned to go back into the store and froze. A man stood less than a foot from her. He had put on weight now, a lot of weight, and he'd bleached his hair, his eyebrows, his beard. His contact lenses now were an icy gray. "Hello, Maya," Zachary said in a friendly tone as he drew the knife from his pocket. He moved too quickly for her as she tried to dart away. She didn't even have time to scream. Ash ducked into the store, rubbing his hands together. I know I'm not supposed to be in here," he grinned at Lark, "but I figured I could grab some of Maya's spiced apple juice to go. It's freezing out there." "Where is she anyway?" "In the back." "Maya," Lark called, but when her boss didn't answer, she stuck her head around the door. "Huh. Guess she took the trash out." "Don't worry, Kevin's watching the back." Lark didn't seem fazed, but Ash frowned and went into the back room, sticking his head out of the door. There was no one outside. His colleague Kevin was nowhere to be found, but as he stared along the alleyway, he saw something on the ground. He went toward it, and as he approached, he cursed loudly. "Blood. Jesus." He grabbed his phone as he walked back to the store, Lark looking worried. "What is it?" Ash's face was drawn and troubled. "It's blood. Maya's been taken."
Chapter 23.
Adam hit the brake and was out of the car before it had even fully stopped. Ash met him. "Boss? I can't even begin to." "Stop. Just tell me what's happened." Adam felt the panic in him rise when he saw the ambulance, and Ash told him that Kevin had been attacked by an unknown assailant. Adam stalked over to his injured security guard. How did he get the jump on you?" "Mr. Harcourt, he looks completely different to every photo, every description." Kevin's face was streaked with blood. "I was watching, but this is a public area, and we can't stop just anyone. He didn't approach the alleyway until he was ready to. He's bigger, a lot of extra weight, and his hair, everything is bleached blonde." Kevin looked so guilty, so defeated that Adam felt sorry for him. This was Adam's fault and no one else's. After a year, Maya had insisted on lightening the protection, telling him that 4 people on guard all day at the store just was too much. She's argued for 1 but compromised on 2, Ash for the storefront, Kevin to patrol the alleyway behind. I'd seen the guy for a few days. He was like clockwork. He got a paper from the vendor, then sat on the bench to read it. It never occurred to me he was watching for Maya to come out of the back because she so rarely does. It's usually Lark, handling the trash when Maya brings in the signs at closing time. He was waiting. "I'm sorry, boss, I dropped the ball." The paramedic with Kevin shot Adam a look that said, "Let me treat this guy." Adam held his hand up. "Just 1 more minute, please." "Kevin, he must have taken her away in a vehicle. Did you see anything?" Kevin nodded. "Hyundai. White." "Great," Ash said, "because that's not one of the most common cars on the road." Adam shot his guard a look. "Does this street have security cameras?" "Some." "Get them. They can't have gotten off the island this quickly. She's here somewhere." Ash, his face red from Adam's sharp tone, nodded. "Sure thing, right away." Adam had called the FBI the second Ash had called him, and they assured him they were onto it. He called the agent back now and related what Kevin had told him. "We've already got agents on all the ferries," the agent told him, "and we're sending in a helicopter search team." "We're trying to find some camera footage," Adam told him as he saw the local sheriff's car pull up. "And the local cops are here." "We'll find her, Adam." Adam had told Emery what had happened, and she had taken Luca back with her and Nella to their home. He called her now and relayed everything. "How's Lulu?" "She's a smart kid, Adam. She knows something is wrong. I'm running out of things to tell her." "Let me speak to her, Em, would you please?" Luca said hello in a voice that quivered with nerves. "Hey, sweetie pie. Look, it's okay, just mommy needs me right now. We both love you and please don't worry, okay?" "Pa?" "Yes, Nugget?" There was a long pause. "Is it my dad? Does he have mommy?" "Don't lie. Maya wouldn't want you to lie." "Yes, darling, he does. But we're going to find them, and then he'll be in jail, sweetie. Is he going to hurt her? Oh God, please no. I promise you, I won't let him hurt Mommy. He just prayed he wasn't telling her the worst lie of her young life. Maya woke up in the trunk of Zach's car, pain racking her body. Zach had stabbed her, and the force of the blow had knocked her to the ground, where he bounced her head off the icy ground, and everything went black. Now, she clutched her hand to the stab wound in her side and felt the damp, sticky blood. It didn't seem too deep, but it bled continually, and she knew she was in trouble if she didn't stop the bleeding. Where the hell was he taking her? Why hadn't he just killed her in the alley? And what had he done to Adam's security people? She had seen Ash outside this morning, but Kevin, the other guy, had been nowhere to be seen in the alleyway. Why didn't I check? I got complacent for 1 second. God, the pain in her side was getting worse. She felt the car slow and come to a full stop. Shit. Maya felt around in the trunk for anything to use as a weapon, but it was empty. She blinked as Zach opened the trunk and she struggled as he yanked her out. Stop fighting me, darling, he said, his voice not showing any strain as she tried to fight him off. You know how this is going to end, Maya. You've always known. They were somewhere on the coast, and now Maya recognized it as a part of the island that wasn't populated by many people. A small boathouse stood next to the water, and Zach dragged her into it, throwing her to ground. Pain tore through her as he bound her hands behind her back and turned her over. He looked down at her. So, we come to the end game. Here's what's going to happen now, Maya. I'm going to kill you slowly. Then I'll put your body into this boat right here, and I'll sail out to the middle of Puget Sound and kill myself. Whether they find our bodies before the elements or the ocean take care of us, we'll never know. He tore open her shirt, smirking at the wound already there. This was nothing, Maya. A graze. He sat back on his haunches and sighed. Have you anything to say to me? Why? She said, her voice steady. Maya knew no one could save her now, but she was damned if was going to die without knowing why he had done all of this. Why did you do this, all of it? What did I do to you to deserve it? Zach smirked. You were going to leave me. That shocked her. What the hell are you talking about? You were sleeping with Harcourt even back then. I saw you together at the party. Out on the balcony. Obviously planning your next assignation. Maya goggled at him. Are you insane? That was the first time I'd even heard of Adam, let alone knew who he was. I saw you, Maya. The knife was perilously close to her skin, and Maya took a deep breath. Keep him talking. Distract him. The rope around her hands was looser than Zach had realized, and she was working them free slowly. There was no mistaking that look between you. How long had it been going on? She sighed. I never cheated on you, Zachary, and you can believe that or not. She tried to smile at him. I loved you. I loved you until the moment you took my daughter away from me. Your daughter, Zach. What you did to her, I cannot forgive you for. He slashed at her skin with the tip of the knife, and she cried out at the quick pain. You forgive me? His face was an inch from hers then, and his spittle flecked her skin. Maya didn't look away, seeing the rage, the madness in his eyes. You skank. How many of my friends did you sleep with? None of them, Zach. You imagined it all. But you know what? I wish I had slept with all of them, because then this would be something more than proof that you are deluded. You're nothing but a sick jerk. Her words were cut off as Zach stabbed her, the breath knocked from her lungs. As he wrenched the knife from her, he leaned and forced his lips against hers, and Maya bit down hard on his bottom lip, feeling the soft flesh give way. Zach roared and rocked back as Maya finally freed her hands. Ignoring the pain of her wounds, she rolled up and planted both feet firmly in Zach's chest, kicking with all of her strength. Zach tumbled backwards, and she heard his head crack off a steel post. Praying the blow had killed him, she scrambled to her feet and kicked him in the groin as hard as she could, before darting for the door. Her hopes were dashed when Zach screamed with fury as she pushed the heavy door open and stumbled out. Maya heard the helicopter just as Zach, his head a bloody mess, started after her. She staggered over the rocks to the car Zach had abandoned and locked herself inside it. As she watched the helicopter close in, she flashed her headlights at it. SOS. Zach tried to wrench the door of the car open, but Maya gave him the finger and started the car. Her wounds were bleeding copiously now, and her head was dizzy. Don't pass out now. She yanked the car into reverse and screeched backwards, Zach still hanging on the door handle. She was dragging him, and now she didn't care. Die jerk. She was distracted and didn't notice the stone boulder behind the car until she hit it with a shock. The force of the sudden stop made her hit the steering wheel, and she gasped as it struck her hard in the chest. The driver's window shattered as Zach threw a rock at it, and then he was dragging her out onto the asphalt. Maya was losing the strength to go on, but Luca's face floated across her mind. As Zach, having lost his knife, fixed his hands around her throat and began to squeeze, Maya thanked God that Luca would have Adam in her life, to raise her, to give her all the love in the world. Black spots danced at the corners of her eyes as she heard shouts, then gunfire, and as she passed out, she felt a weight drop onto her, and something warm and liquid pumping onto her. Blood. But not hers. Maya. Light seeped into her brain, and she opened her eyes as Adam hauled Zach's body from her and scooped her into his arms. Oh my God, Maya, Maya. She focused on his beautiful face and smiled. It's over, she said. It's finally over. I love you so much, but I think I have to pass out now, okay? Adam was laughing and crying at the same time. You do what you need to, my love. We're going to get you to the hospital, okay? Okay. She leaned her head against his hard chest and let herself sink into unconsciousness.
Chapter 24.
She felt little fingers curling around her hair as she woke, and she was smiling before she even opened her eyes. Hey, my little nugget. Maya opened her eyes and smiled down at her daughter. Luca was cuddled next to her on the hospital bed, her head on Maya's shoulder. Adam was on Maya's other side, holding her hand. He bent down and kissed her. How are you feeling? Actually good, she said with a little surprise. That'll be the morphine. Adam grinned, nodding to the drip. Nah, it's the company, Maya said with a laugh. She kissed Luca's forehead. You okay, Nugget? Luca nodded but didn't say anything, and Maya shot a glance at Adam, who gave her a smile and mouthed, She's okay. Maya stroked her daughter's hair. Sweetie, I really am okay. Your father, he's gone now. He can't hurt any of us anymore, but it's okay to feel sad. I don't feel sad, Luca said in a small voice, and Maya realized that her daughter was feeling guilty for not mourning her biological father. She hugged her close. That's okay too, Nugget, you know? Daddy was a very sick man, and he hurt us all. It's okay to be relieved. She kissed her daughter's forehead. Okay now. Luca nodded. Later, Emery came to pick Luca up and take her home for a sleepover with Nella. At first, Luca was hesitant to go, but Maya persuaded her. I'll be right here tomorrow, sweetheart, and home soon, I hope. I love you. When they were alone, Adam took Luca's place on the bed, cradling his wife in his arms. You scared the hell out of me. I took things for granted and let my guard down, and he got through. Don't blame Ash or Kevin, please. Ash quit. He's pretty cut up about letting you down. Ah, damn it. Adam shrugged, and Maya saw residual anger in his eyes. Adam, it really wasn't his fault. Zach was going to get to me one way or another. It's over now. He's gone, thank God. They held each other for the longest time without speaking. Adam kissed her temple. Is there something else you want to tell me, baby? Maya frowned. What? Adam got up and grabbed his coat, pulling a brown paper bag out of it. Lark found this in the bathroom the day you were taken. Maya reached in and felt the plastic of the pregnancy test. Her mouth rounded into an O. I completely forgot about this. I took it, then tried not to look at it, tried to distract myself, so that's why I went to take the trash out. She felt a pang as she looked at him. Did you look? Adam nodded, but she couldn't read his expression. Take a look. For a moment, she panicked. Her wounds, although nasty, hadn't been too serious. She'd been in surgery less than an hour, but if... Maya, take a look. She pulled the test from the bag and made herself look at it. There were no double blue lines, but this wasn't one of those tests. This was a pregnant, not pregnant test. And it was clear. Pregnant. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. She looked up at Adam, whose smile was tremendous and delighted. We're going to have a baby? Adam chuckled. So it seems, the doctor confirmed it while you were in surgery and everything is fine. He sat down again and kissed her. About 6 weeks, they think. We're going to have a baby. Maya was crying now, smiling through her tears as Adam took her into his arms and kissed her tenderly. Luca is going to have a brother or sister. We have a family baby. Maya held onto her husband, the love of her life, and cried with joy as he kissed her. Thank you, Adam. Thank you for bringing me back to life in so many, many ways. Thank you for teaching me to trust again, he said, his voice gravelly with emotion. From now on, we'll always be together, all 4 of us. He grinned. Sorry, forgive me, and Betty too. Maya stared at him, joy flooding her system, taking away any last vestiges of pain or fear. We're going to be so happy from now, aren't we, Adam? His green eyes twinkled at her. There's nothing in this world more certain than that, darling. Nothing, I promise you. And finally, after everything that had happened, Maya knew that to be true.
The end. Thank you for listening to this audiobook. Audio copyright 2023 BFA Publishing. Please like and subscribe to support this channel. It helps more than you know. Black medium small square.